7:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
All right, welcome everybody. I didn't have the Ask Gun Questions intro, so this is the Ask Gun Questions show that we do on Saturdays. And there's a website, askgunquestions.com. You can go over there and ask questions. We've had it up since 2007. People have been asking questions all that time. And there's no ads or anything. We're not harvesting emails. I don't even care about your email. You can just ask a question over there. It goes to a Google form, and then we look at them and answer those questions on Saturdays. Tony's joining us from New Jersey. Thanks for jumping in.
Hey, man, glad to be here.
Let's see. So I think I got the show started off right. They don't see the behind the scenes stuff where it got all clumsy and crazy, but I'm still learning this new software, so I appreciate everybody's patience with us and kind of the late start. But one of the things is, I don't know if I've ever mentioned live, when you start a show at like 1 o'clock, like this is starting at 1 o'clock p.m. for me. If we started it live at the top of the hour, so many people on YouTube start their things at the top of the hour, quarter after or half hour mark, that starting at what we're starting at 1:17, we have less competition. So potentially, I think is the right word, that some people think that you have better reach with your live shows if you start at an off time than at the top of the hour or the 30-minute mark. So that's what we're going to say that we're doing. We did get hooked up on Instagram today, though, and that's tricky. So I don't always get to do it. It requires an extra kind of like, I have to do something extra with my left hand in order to get it to happen. So we did get it working. I can tell there's a ton of people joining over there. More people join from there and X than join on YouTube usually, and they don't say anything. But the people on YouTube that say stuff, like DJ over here is typing stuff, some links for us. I can put those up on the screen. Thank you very much. So we'll say thanks to the people that are joining us live. We do this live after all. I value the live stuff. I'm assuming Tony does. He does a bunch of live stuff. The internet is back and forth. The internet isn't distribution of my agenda or Tony's opinion on stuff. It's we can share this, but you have a voice in this, and that's why I do this on YouTube, on Instagram, and on X, because they all offer a way for you to be part of the show and to offer feedback. So take us up on that. Oh, look, there's DJ saying stuff over there. Can I get it to show up over here is the question. I think it does show up over here. It might take a minute, but DJ just commented over on Instagram. Thank you for that. Anyway, I'll throw up some of the questions and stuff that people have been saying live while we're getting ready here. But what's been going on with 2A Free?
There you go. Yeah, we just kicked off year 10 at Gun for Hire on Thursday. So we had our 10th anniversary launch. It was great. We were sold out before the event, as always. I see someone is new out there, so diversity shoots are Second Amendment advocacy workshops where I introduce people to firearms, uh, real gun owners, Second Amendment advocacy organizations in New Jersey and nationally if they are there. Uh, we bring in food, we have prizes, we have raffles. I actually talk to people and have that conversation that anti gunners say they want to have. And a lot of the people that we have, of course, come to our events. Since we are in New Jersey, North Jersey especially, we're like 15 minutes away from Manhattan, about an hour away from Philly. So we have people from every demographic on the planet Earth come into our event, and we welcome them to the Second Amendment and firearms community, but also to the Second Amendment advocacy community. And we have a good time. We had people from, I know one lady is a college student. She first came there as a junior, I think, like she started her second year of college when She came to our event. Now she's working on her master's degree. She brought her dad and her uncle. We had people that bring their coworkers. We had husbands and wives, and it was a great success. We had some really cool gifts. One of the organizations, or one of the ladies, started something called Naturally Armed, and where she is reaching out to females from every background to welcome them into the firearms community. And she said that she got her start because she saw what I was doing and wanted to emulate it. And I welcome that. So she's been doing this for 1 year now. She started her own thing. Hers is for profit, mine is not. And she started hosting events, and I welcomed her, and she brought in some shirts and stuff to be raffled off. She also joined the Women for Gun Rights organization, and she buys T-shirts from there and actually donates them to me. So we raffle them off just to get women excited, and it's really awesome. And we had a great time Thursday night at Gun for Hire Range. Again, we sold out there, but we got 5 more events there this year. And we also have the event coming up at the end of the month on the 27th that we shoot in Lakewood, New Jersey. So we're busy every month in ranges across the state. So we got 5 different ranges we'll be working with. And pretty much the schedule is set for all but one of them. And I really have to reach out to them. But I've been ill for 3 weeks now, and it's really been messing me up. So that's what's going on, and that's what I'm up to.
Right on. You answered my question there at the very end that I was going to ask. So, one of the other questions I was going to ask is, it's you've had a couple now since Trump has been in office. Um, has it been two?
No, it was only been one.
Okay, so you don't have a lot to go from, but do you anticipate from this one, or maybe from any other, just things you got out there, your radar, since it's you only have one to go off of. I was just going to ask, so do you think it's going to be any different politically? Like, do you think that it'll affect the people that show up or the conversations that happen at 2A for E with him in the presidency versus, I don't know, when it was
Hmm.
just
Yeah,
different situation last year?
I'm going to make sure it does. I'm going to make sure it does because right now, again, Trump is pretending to be pro 2A. And the reason I said it is because I haven't seen anything but its executive order, but I haven't seen work. I want to see it. And I'm going to encourage people to actually write their representatives because this is our chance. We have a Republican House, a Republican Senate, and a Republican president. We need to start pushing for pro gun bills from people that say they're pro 2A. So I bring it up intentionally. And I was like, regardless of what your background, or if you think Orange Man bad, or if you think Orange Man the second coming of Jesus Christ, you need to contact your representative. You need to contact Orange Man and work to get our rights guaranteed for the next generation by pushing Second Amendment advocacy. We need to be on the offense as 2A advocates and not sit around going, "Ooh, we're good for 2 years at least." No, 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 no. We need to be proactive in the fight for our rights. And so that's why I intentionally bring it up. And I'm like, this is the time to be bipartisan. This is the time to reach across the aisle and demand that both sides fight for our Second Amendment civil rights, like by passing legislation now when the ball's in our court. So I bring it up intentionally, and I'm hoping it actually has some effect of waking people the hell up.
Dude, that's awesome. So, this isn't scripted or nothing. And because one, I don't like that shit. Plus, that's lame because if I'm scripting it, I'm trying to tell you something that, my opinion or something, my point of view. Um, but anyway, so this isn't scripted. And I was really asking from the angle of, are different people going to show up, or are they going to have different conversations? But you took it to as the, what do you call yourself? As the um, director, I guess is a good word, as the
Mhm.
person who's setting the vibe and setting the agenda of the show or of the
Yep.
events, since you're kind of scheduling them and everything. You talked about your perspective there to not lay up essentially, or take a breather or take a knee or whatever the hell the sports terms are for when you're not in the game. So I dig that because it got me thinking. That's why I threw my question up here. Um, Now, for people that aren't paying attention or just haven't been around to pay attention to this from this perspective, the gun owners' rights organizations didn't always exist because we didn't always need them. There have been slight attacks on our rights over the years. The 1934 is really the biggest example of that, the 1934 NFA. And that was the first slap or the first punch in the face or the first kick in the gut or the first stab of the ice pick, whatever you want to look at it as, to our rights. And it took until the 68 before we actually created the organizations that we all know is like part of the scene. And it was the 68 Gun Control Act that reinforced some bullshit and added more bullshit and created the restrictions and what do you call that thing? I'm trying to say before. I'm thinking taxes. The 4473. We have too many taxes. We have too many forms to keep track of. But anyway, because it wasn't until 68 that the country, the gun owners and the people who give a shit who were paying attention said, hey, wait a minute. And then, we start to see in 70, 71, 75 era, the organizations, the big three-letter organizations that we know today, GOA and SAF and the NRA's ILA, all get created as a result of the 1968. And that's all we had because that's all we needed, and that's all we had because that's all we asked for. I don't want to say it's all we needed. They filled a gap that was necessary, that happened, like a void or rift happened, and they were the result of that. And then they started to grow at their pace and get the attention. But here's the thing, like, we're capitalism, right? So the three of them existed because they all came at it from a different angle with the same kind of purpose to defend the right of the gun owner. But because they all had different opinions and different angles, they all did that in different ways for decades. And we know what happened with the NRA. That's a whole conversation. We can have a whole conversation on any of those three. It wasn't until really 94 that we started to see, maybe you could say 86, but really that shit happened with nobody paying attention. So it wasn't until the 94 assault weapons ban that, again, the political agenda, the climate changed, and the politicians that brought the 94 assault weapons ban all got removed from office. Nobody wants to talk about that because nobody can take credit for it, and nobody remembers it because not enough people are old enough to remember that. But in 95, everybody who touched the 94 assault weapons ban was gone. They were gone. Like, that was not tolerated. And in 2004, when it ended, when it sunsetted, nobody even attempted to raise a finger to suggest that it should continue. There wasn't even a blip. It just ended one day, and the one or two newspapers locally said it happened, and M16 and AK-47 sales went nuts because we could buy the shit again. So then you have until Obama in 13 that anything else happens again. And the reason I'm explaining this piece of history is, like, we didn't have gun owners' rights organizations because we didn't need them. We had these kicks, we had these attacks, we had these punches, but they were so isolated, and there were results of them in the old days that we were satisfied with, I guess. Again, we're capitalism. So nobody sat down and said, would you rather have no NFA back in 86? They just said, hey, we're fighting the slights against us. And we said, okay. And we went on with our lives. But now we have a world where we're all connected, and we can say to each other, wait a minute, we'd rather have no NFA than we're just fighting, right? Like, we can have that difference of opinion. We can let ourselves know about this. So by 2015, when Tony's era, I'm going to call it, of Second Amendment organizations are created to either, well, I want to say support, because it's not always defend, but it's support the different aspects of the gun owners community. Like in 2015, we could go on and on about all the organizations that were started in that time. Those organizations all start with a different mindset completely than the organizations that started in 1970. And that's how big a gap there was. There was some organizations that started in 2000 because of the birth of the internet, but those organizations were not inspired, and they weren't under attack, and they weren't doing anything other than uniting facets of the gun community. But none of them had like a massive political agenda or anything. So those ones that happened in 2000, I'm going to ignore. So just because of that, but those exist, and then they may have in 2015 or 13 or somewhere in there become political, but again, they didn't start out that way. But anyway, I'm saying all this just because it needs to be said every once in a while. But this new era, this most recent, or one of the most recent, I don't even want to say most recent because that was fucking 10 years ago. Should have been more gun owners' rights organizations started since then. There's only been a couple. But anyway, this most recent era, one of these most recent eras here, is going to have this opinion based on the history of living through all the others, right? And the lack and the missing, whatever they missed. So that's interesting. And I don't know if this was all just wasted air or whatever to say all this. Like I said, I think every once in a while it should be put up on the internet, that kind of a history of what's been happening. It's not like we're entitled to, as gun owners' rights organizations. It's not like they owe us anything. We get what we pay for, right? And they've evolved based on what we've had the perception to need, right? Like we didn't know we could get rid of the NFA in '86, or else we would have been asking for it. Maybe people were content with the NFA back then, but we certainly are not now, or we don't need to be now. I guess my big ass question, or this is all leading up to, is you've been talking to people going to the going to be on the NRA board, ideally, right? That the new, what do they call them? The reform candidates.
The reformers, yep, the reform candidates.
So you know them or have talked to them recently about this. So let's say, let's assume, and I've already said this last week, that it doesn't matter if they got all elected this year. They'll either get elected this time or the next time, but they will be elected. There's nobody to there's nobody to defend the old regime, so it's going to fall apart. Like the only thing defending the old regime is people that are unfamiliar with the new numbers or think the reform candidates must be bad or something. But anyway, so once the new reform candidates kind of take over the NRA, will the NRA have this nuanced, whatever I just tried to describe there, this nuanced opinion that we don't just sit down in the off times? And because I can't imagine anybody who I know that's running. I know them of them, them, but
Hmm.
what I know of them, I can't imagine any of them being content with, like, okay, that fight's over. Like, let's all go back to work and let us know when the next fight comes. Like, I can't even imagine. Like, what is I don't want to like be too over optimistic, but what's the future when everybody who just blindly supports the NRA is now supporting all those off season fights, or off, I don't know what to call them, like, fighting for our rights when we're not just defending our rights. I guess that's the way to say it. Anyway, that was a long ass intro. I'll let you go for a while.
All right, so the number of people right now, the number of people I know that are running for the NRA board. Now, I already know people on the NRA board that are Second Amendment advocates. I apologize. Um, but the people I know that are running a pro 2A don't believe enough is being done, do believe the NFA needs to go, do believe the Hughes Amendment needs to go. Um, they believe in, if not constitutional carry, that the Constitution is your carry permit. So all the people I know um, are almost as rabid pro 2A as I am. So that's who's running. And my answer is, if they're not doing what you want, replace them. All right, because they have to run every 2 years, and it's up to us as individuals. All those people saying F the NRA and don't join the NRA, good, join another Second Amendment organization, but the one that has created a panic in the anti-freedom movement is the NRA. That's who they say. That the NRA has more membership than all of the other Second Amendment organizations combined. It dwarfs them. So, what should we do? We shouldn't get rid of our biggest ship. We shouldn't rid of our biggest guns. But we have to make it course correct. And one of the ways we do that is replace the board that are full of people who have never proved themselves to be advocates. They need to go. We need to support and stock the NRA with actual people that have a history of supporting the Second Amendment. That's what we need to do, in my opinion. So, yes, the people I know, John Richardson, Charles Brown or Charlie Brown, uh, and Teresa Einacker, those three I 100% know because I've had conversations with them. I've worked with Teresa here in New Jersey. She's an attorney. She actually can argue in front of the Supreme Court. She's very smart. We've been on podcasts together. We've been at conferences together. I've heard her speak. I know her and her family. Um, Charles Brown is the owner of High Point, or at least MDS Supply. And we've had conversations before I even knew who he was about firearms and the law. And then after we got to know each other. We've had conversations about this. Hell, I knew 3 years ago he was planning on running because we had that conversation at the Great American Outdoor Show while just sitting there watching people walk by. We have real people running now, and I think it's the new NRA. I think that's the name of the website. I do apologize. It's on my Twitter page. If you scroll down to it and you see the picture of me and Charlie standing beside each other, I actually have the link there that you can go and see all of the reform candidates and read their bios and see what they're about. But we have to be active.
Is it
If
this
that's
one,
not on our,
strongnra.com?
I don't think it's strong in RA. Dang.
I think it is. It's what Petrolino post linked to.
Oh,
It's got Bob
okay.
Barr, Shannon, Larry Craig, Isaac, somebody, Lawrence, Jeff Fleetum, Carol, Joel,
Mm,
Sandra Froman. No,
don't
no,
think
no,
so.
no,
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 no. That's
that's
the
not it.
that's their comp. That's I'll bet you I know what this is.
Mm-hmm.
This is
That's it.
probably the list of incumbents who self-describe as strong NRA.
Mm-hmm.
Haha. So that's the old ones. So they take. Oh, let me put it on the screen here. I knew it was lame because of this. Or I suspected it was lame. I guess I didn't know, or else I wouldn't even have brought it up. But let me share this inside your screen, and then now what do I do? Go to layers, maybe. Oh crap! What do I do? I'm not used to this thing yet. I think I'm figuring it out. I might be figuring it out. Add to screen. There we go. All right. So now we're tiny. Can I just make us disappear? There. And then how do I get rid of DJ's thing? Boom. All right. So right off the bat, when I seen this fake ass HCR eagle in front of a flag, I'm like, this doesn't
Mm-hmm.
seem right. Like, this doesn't seem like Teresa Einacker, right? So
Mm-hmm.
let's see. So these are all the people who are essentially like, no, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong. What are you talking about? There's nothing wrong. So I'm trying to find. You're telling me that Petrolinos a reformed NRA? Elect new NRA.com? This must be the right one.
Nope, not it.
No?
Mm-mm.
This is probably just to how to get to elect. Like this is how
Yeah.
to vote, I should say.
What's John? John's on. No, this
I'm
is the
looking
regular
on
one.
this to try to figure out. I'm looking at a Petrolino article.
Yeah,
NRA
so John
board.
has both. Go ahead.
Oh, here's the reformers. No, that's not the reformers.
Mm, mm, mm. Yes, yes. So if you don't believe this isn't scripted, we're proving it right now. Um,
No, this got to
yeah,
be it.
because
This has got to be it.
yep, that's it. That's it. I think
This
you should
is,
have their
yeah,
pictures.
yeah.
Okay,
Because
cool.
you just have to go to the candidates one. All right,
Yep.
so these are the folks that are all fighting for, a reformed
Okay.
NRA, essentially.
So there's my friend Anthony Calandro, second one right there. And Anthony is Gun for Hire Radio.
And a giant shooting range and gun shop right next to New York and New Jersey that's been hosting Tony since the beginning and does a bunch
hmm
of different things right next to New York City.
Yep. And then
And
there's
then
Charlie.
Charlie Brown. This guy, it just doesn't say, but this is the guy who owns High Point.
Yep.
Taint is somebody. I've seen him on a bunch of shows. Um, I don't know who these other people are.
Me neither. It looks
And
like
then
Dick
there's
Cheney's
John
there. And
Richards.
that's yep. And there's
Does,
John.
right? It says Jim
Yeah.
Porter, former NRA president. So I don't know. But Jim Wallace is, I've seen him before. He's Goal. Is he Goal? That's just a weird picture of him, but that's from Gun Owners Action League out of Massachusetts. So real dude.
Okay.
You got John Richardson, Only Guns and Money. You got Knox Williams from the American Espresso Association. So this is the guy that started the American Espresso Association.
Uh-huh.
Can't, yeah, that's good dude. Um,
And where's Teresa's picture? This is not
they stuck
Yep.
her way at the
There's
bottom.
Teresa.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then
That's real
Willis Lee,
smart.
whenever I had Willis Lee on it for an interview, everybody gave me shit
hmm
that, and now he's on the good side again. So I don't know. He's a lieutenant
Yeah.
colonel. I'm just going to leave it at that. He's a lieutenant
Yep.
colonel.
No, okay, I'll pick it up from there. He's a politician.
Yeah,
All
same
right,
thing. Right? It's like saying the same
and
thing.
yep, 100%. And he was doing what he needed to do. I feel to stay there. I don't know. He was working with who was there. Because you can't have a freaking, if you're not at the table, you can't make a difference. So he was working with who was there, and now they're gone, and now he's on the reform side of things. If you believe in him, vote for him. Again, he has a track record of being there. You can actually talk to some of these NRA. This is why it's important to go to the NRA annual meeting, which everybody calls the NRA show,
Yep.
because these people will be there. You need to actually have conversations with them. Now, don't corner them and ask them to say some ridiculous, hey, does Willis Lee suck? Well, no, this is people they have to work with, and you don't know them and they don't know you. So why would they answer something that's a loaded question? But these are intelligent people and they can actually talk to you about stuff. We need to understand that we need to change this organization and we need to do it one election at a time. We need you if you're going to be in on this. And truthfully, people have asked me before, should I join the NRA? It's up to you. Your local Second Amendment organization is truly the most important. All right. That's the one that puts pressure on your local politicians. The NRA has a nationwide goal, and it may not correspond to what's happening in your state. Your state won't have priority over the NRA's national goal. Even if every one of the reformers win, if right now 76 mother effers that are the most vehement pro 2A people on the planet take over the NRA, they still only have a limited budget, and they still can only go for certain cases that make sense uh, to their national mission. So yes, joining your local organization, in my opinion,
Mm.
takes precedent if you're only going to join one. If you're going to join more than one, I think the NRA is up there with the others. Actually, again, if we're on a mission to change it and turn it into the 700-pound gun rights fighting gorilla that the left continually says it is, we need to get the ship turned around and we need you to join for at least a 5-year membership so you can vote in every election. The minute you join with a 5-year membership, you don't have to be in for 5 years. If you've been in for 5 years continuously and you just do 1 year reboots every year for like $35, you're a voting member. But if you buy a 5-year membership, you immediately become a voting member, and that's usually $100 or less at NRA shows. So if you went to the Great American Outdoor Show, you could get it at a discount. If you go to the NRA show, you can get it at a discount. During the year, sometimes they have them for discounts, and fine, join that way. But join. We have to change the NRA into a freaking monster. And in my opinion, the way to do it is only bring in people that have proven they're pro 2A by the work they've done. Some bored rich guy that owns tanks might not be the best bet. Or somebody that has a bunch of machine guns as an investment might not be the dude you want.
So that's
Just
an
saying.
option that we've got is for people that are going to vote. Like say, there's like a thresh. Is there a threshold. There's a whatever you have to be at a point in the NRA organization to be able to vote. So that's only so many people. And because of all the crap that's happened over the last years, tons of people have left. So the voting pool, I'm sure, has gotten much smaller. There are people. Well, I'm glad you brought it up because it is possible for people that have an interest in the future of the NRA to decide for $35 it's worth putting my uh, vote into the mix, knowing that there's not that many votes. That one, you're supporting the organization to some extent, although I was going to challenge you on that concept. But then also because you're putting your voice towards one of these reform candidates that'll change things. But to go backwards, I do think it's different. I think that we've got more opportunity than what you're talking about with funding. You seem to be focused on the funding part of the NRA,
Mm-hmm.
but they've got
Yeah.
the infrastructure, and just the infrastructure to be able to tell members when something's up, because we know from just doing things as grassroots or whatever, that if you can tell 100 people, you're going to get a certain amount of response. But if you can tell 1,000 people, you're going to get, some magnitude larger response. And that's what the NRA can offer without even funding. So I understand that like funding suits and stuff is a thing, funding other things is a thing. But I think a working NRA is like infrastructure that lets you get the word out through that news feature, or like just them saying something, there's enough people following them, but also with all their range infrastructure and sports infrastructure and training infrastructure, it's possible for what's the word? An NRA, I don't want to say 2.0 because that sounds lame, but like an NRA version next would be have functionality in those areas of its infrastructure to be of its maximum use. And that's where it wouldn't take much effort or cost to retool the NRA in that way. So that, let's say, for example, when the instructors all get a newsletter every month that says XYZ about this and that, it also says, and here's some fights that we have to be aware of in these states. Or if nothing else, like here's a link to the thing that we keep track of. And that's another thing NRA is able to do, is be the national calendar, the national, I don't know what you call, like, keeping track of all the lawsuits and shit like that, like the scorekeeper. They've got the potential to do that just because they've got, that the number of eyeballs they've got and the infrastructure. And the other side of it is that funding. They are going to have to pay for the lawsuits and pay for stuff that they just got their, they got to finish paying their debts or whatever. And that's a burden and that's annoying, but it's a finite number. Like, it's not like forever. That's a number that once it's over, the NRA can do whatever it wants again. And a new NRA, can do what it wants. So if I look at it as the battleship in our fleet, not the battleship, the aircraft carrier in our fleet. Yeah, it's all rusted out and shitty. And it's, the new crew has taken over command from people that were neglecting it and letting it literally fall apart. Like the building itself, literally the NRA building needs work. But instead of running to New Mexico and just buying a new building, repair that building. And then what do? Now you're right next to Washington, D.C. with a brand new building with brand new people inside, a brand new membership, or revitalized, whatever the word is, revigorized. I don't know if that's the right word.
Reinvigorated or revitalized.
That's the word. Yeah. A new membership that, I'm saying, what's the potential of that on the Hill, or whatever they say, like to the Congress or to the executive branch. And, you know what I mean? So I think there's worth some, the potential. I hope that people that are new don't get in there and start going, let's go to New Mexico, or let's go to Virginia, or some dumb place. Or I guess they're technically already in Virginia. Let's go to some other state where it's easier or cheaper or something as a cost-saving measure. Because I really do think there's something to be. One of the reasons they're probably such a threat to the people in Washington is like they're not very far physically from Washington, D.C. It's like a 5 or 10 minute drive, depending on traffic. And you're like at the Capitol from the NRA building. And I don't think that was intentional necessarily. I think they just wanted to be near, but because they're on a highway, they just happen to be right there. Anyway, and I guess I was going to say then, kind of going backwards to, let's say that, again, I'm pretty much, somebody could try to talk me out of it, but I don't see any way that the reform candidates don't all eventually get there. I mean, you can definitely bet me on how fast they'll get there, but they're going to get there. They're going to stalemate the bad guys. The bad guys are going to die because they're all super old and they're greedy, and they're going to figure out that these people that are already there are stalemating it, and all they did is open the door to more new people. So the reform candidates will eventually win because the old candidates will stop running, I guess the way to say it, or they'll retire even, and then we'll get interim reform candidates, right? So we'll see new things happening at the NRA sooner than later, or I should say one way or another. I don't want to say sooner than later, one way or another, even if that is later. But that being said, what's the new NRA look like with a reinvigorated membership because of the new leadership, and a leadership that's focused on so much more? And what were the issues? Okay, first off, there's an organization that makes $24 million a month that goes after the NRA training. So the NRA training started in the 1700s, and it was one of our only nationalized uniform training regiments out there, except for the military. There was the Boy Scouts, which gets it from the NRA. There's NRA, and then there's the military. and nobody can, what's the word, like
Hmm.
nobody ever had a conflict with that or like challenged it. There was no challenger to that because nobody gave a shit. Nobody was paying attention to it. I don't want to get into the whole history of training, but it doesn't start until Cooper, right? Like we had some training, but it was all NRA or military up until about Cooper, and then training became a thing. And to some people would probably say it became an opportunity for capitalists to make money on it.
Okay.
So that now, oh well, my style is different than their style, so therefore you should pay me different, and them or something. But anyway,
Hmm.
you know what I'm saying? Like the NRA training, what's the real problem with NRA training? Question mark. In reality, everybody who's on USCCA is like, oh, NRA training sucks. You go as our training. Well, what the fuck? NRA doesn't have $24 million a month to promote their training. But which training is really better? Tell me what the difference is in their training that likes one of their trainings better, since I'll challenge anybody to say there's any difference between whatever they're doing and core Cooper.
Oh,
I
okay.
mean,
Well, I'll go ahead. See, for me, I listen to this, right? Because obviously, oh, I'm sorry, I probably didn't tell people. I'm an NRA trained uh, firearms instructor, rifle, pistol, shotgun. I'm also NRA
yeah, I'm
certified
NRA like
firearms
times
instructor.
five, but I haven't done anything USCCA, so I'm just going USCCA from
So,
afar.
no, so, okay, then it comes to USCCA. Now, I haven't done USCCA training, but a crap ton of my friends has. Understand, USCCA is more. Now, NRA basic is fundamentals. It's teaching the fundamentals, and some of their teaching method in their books and the pictures in their books are old fashioned. The guys are chicken winging the shotgun and all of that, but they're teaching marksmanship fundamentals the same way. It is ABC, Barney simple, Mickey Mouse simple, depends on what years you were in the military. That's the term we use. It's either Mickey Mouse or Barney. It's really simple, but it's step by step that you can introduce everyone from children to someone that has never touched a firearm before and is consistent across the country. You go with the NRA curriculum. Actually, you have to take, that class first, basic NRA class, where they teach you their teaching method. All right, now USCCA. Well, they didn't start from that. NRA started in the 1870s, and they've perfected this. USCCA got to jumpstart off with their back, so now they're going to be training. Well, they're training more self-defense and more of the modern method, but those aren't the same things. The NRA had NRA Carry Guard. They tried to start that up, which was what USCCA was doing, but NRA is not built for that. NRA was the basics, the people they put forward to do uh, what do I call it? Carry guard were just totally incorrect. Everything they did sucked, um, from what I saw, and they fell apart. And the NRA also did a money grab. I don't even know if you even know about that, but it was really annoying. They wanted us to be able to have people do their classes from home, and then all they had to do is come and take the test from us. And as an instructor, that's bullcrap because I don't know if they did it from home or they had their 12-year-old kid do it from home because they didn't have time. And now they're standing in front of me with a firearm going, I'm ready to pass the shooting test.
Oh, you mean take their CCW class at home?
Oh, no, no, no. They were able to do their written portion of NRA basics from home and then just supposedly show up at the
Oh,
range with me to do the shooting part. And I'm like, yo, brah, you don't even know how to hold a gun. Who really did the class? Your kid? Yeah, it was stuff like that. And we'd have to teach the class. And of course, the people would like, wait a minute, we paid the NRA this much, and now we got to pay you again to take the same thing. And it was at that point I was like, and then they did the carry guard thing. So it was like, okay, they just want everything coming through the NRA. And I kind of walked away from it and just increased my advocacy because I was doing both. And pretty much it comes to a point, that you do want to spend some time at home with your family because it was, a couple of days during the week training, and then it was, my advocacy, which takes up multiple days a week at time. So I walked away from it. But USCCA is more like concealed carry training, and NRA is NRA fundamentals and basics, and the different disciplines, which is a lot of them, from air rifle to centerfire, ARs to, I mean, they have a whole book about stuff you can be certified in NRA and teach it, but none of it's really self-defense training. It's firearms training. It's different disciplines in firearms, but it's not self-defense. USCCA is. And then when they go, oh, NRA is old fudge stuff. No, NRA is the basics that can be teach everyone from a 7-year-old to a 70-year-old, and everybody's on the same page. They're consistent like McDonald's is consistent when it comes to fast food. You're not going to mistake it for Ruth Chris Steakhouse, but regardless of what door you walk into with those arches over it, the burger is going to taste the same if it's in most countries. And they have beef, it's going to taste like a Big Mac.
Yeah, you're mentioning it. I'm getting flashbacks to my classes, and Gunswater's saying I took an NRA instructor training. It's absolutely nothing worth anything. It's like, I don't know what this means. A Sonoran Desert level of lightweightness. What does that mean?
All right, yeah. Sonoran Desert Institute finally is starting to catch. They're
Oh,
starting to catch
SDI.
on. Yeah,
Okay, so
they're starting to catch on. Yeah.
sorry, I was because I live in the Sonoran Desert. That's why I was like, I don't get this. Some kind of slate where are we weak? I didn't get it. Okay, so now I get it. But no,
Yeah.
that no, I take back my whole rant because you're right, 100%. There is a big ass difference. At first, I was saying like, what's the difference in their? I was thinking CCW training, but CCW
Hmm.
training in the NRA is definitely archaic. Um,
Yeah.
it's definitely everything you just said was 100% correct. It's very cookie cutter, and it's very you have to do it their way because basically just want to make sure everybody's doing the same way. And
Hmm.
again, there was nothing to challenge that, so nobody challenged it, and nobody really cared
Hmm.
because it's safety training. It isn't tactics at all, hardly. If the tactics are like open the door, like their tactics are, I'm sure somebody could take them at their tactics, but their tactics are so basic that they're not really tactics, they're just instructions. So I
Yep.
get what you're saying. And then see, and that's what I guess now that I'm thinking about it, my rant's going to change dramatically from, I get what you're saying. Like the NRA training does need to be updated. And I think that actually is where my question was going. But the USCCA, for example, there's a couple of other training things out there, but USCCA is by far the other biggest contender. Theirs is, like you just said, 100% summarized it well, that theirs is CCW training or concealed carry type of training.
Hmm.
And that's where they come from. What's his face started that as a bunch of videos on how to use different holsters behind a paywall. Then that turned into a magazine with articles on how to use holsters. And then it turned into training on how to use holsters. And oh, then you can also buy the holsters and you can buy the lights and you can buy the flashlight holders and all that. So that's how that all developed. And it's essentially all they had to do because the NRA was so basic. The NRA basic training, or I want to say basic training. The NRA uh, self defense outside the home. There's self defense inside the home and there's
Hmm.
self defense outside the home, which is right off the
Hmm.
bat stupid. But I guess it probably dealt. It seems stupid in 2025, but in 1919,
Hmm.
fucking 80 or whenever, when they probably made it, it was outside the box thinking, self defense outside the home. Because where could you do that in 1980? Let's all think Alaska and Vermont. Maybe Alaska, because Alaska kind of flipped the switch on and off a few times. Vermont. So NRA made a thing that said, training outside the home, probably not in the 80s, maybe in the 90s, but still, like it was Vermont and maybe Florida. And then Arizona came along in like whatever, 2000 and something. Wait, was it 2000 or something? Anyway, I'd have to think about all that for a minute. But it was, they created that, what's that called? The itinerary. Is it itinerary? No. The curriculum from
Hmm.
those courses way before there even was concealed carry, period. Like it existed in theory, but anyway, so whenever they made that, it is pretty lame. It's like, I don't even remember what it is, but it is pretty lame. But I do remember NRA training being eventually essentially military training, or yeah, military training, or maybe some kind of corporate training where they, like you said, McDonald's, where you better be learning this the same way, because if that Big Mac tastes different than everybody else's Big Macs, you're not McDonald's anymore, and
Yep.
there's consequences. So you had to make it the same, and they want everybody to learn the same stuff. But again, they were teaching old ass stuff. So when USCCA came along, all they had to do is not have old ass stuff. And I guess
Hmm.
what I'm getting at is my rage is, or my rant is that USCCA stuff wasn't at the time, at least when I looked at it, wasn't mind break. It wasn't like cutting edge. It was just
Nope.
a better alternative than the NRA stuff. Now it could have definitely got better. I know they have instructors and they pay attention to this stuff over the years, and it's become a bigger and bigger chunk of their stuff. So I'm sure it's gotten different or evolved or whatever. But I guess all I'm saying, the real quick question was, the big issue people have with NRA training is it's antiquated and it's regime. I don't know if that's the right word, but like it's whatever the word is, like uniform, but a worse word than that because it's doctrine. Maybe it's like a shit. It's like it's so
Oh yeah,
uniform that it's bad. Like it's not good. But with
it is
when you
definitely.
bring reformers in, all they got to do is go get the best heads in the game and say, make this better. And how long is it going to take them to make it better? A year? Like 5 months?
Yeah,
You know what I
I
mean?
mean,
Like
it won't
you,
take
you
that
flip
long
a
because you
switch
got
and the
people.
NRA training could be top notch is all I'm getting at.
Yep, but
And it's already got the
understand
infrastructure to be everywhere.
you got the infrastructure already to be everywhere. But what yeah, let's not go into the deep dive of it because what you got with the NRA also is the fact that many ranges across the country get a check from the NRA, for range upkeep and different things. And the checks aren't that big for some, but some they are. They do a lot of work across the country, and for them to up their level to have quality NRA training, shooting and moving, the good stuff, the stuff you pay individual instructors for. If the NRA stepped up to that, they would have to drag some of these ranges kicking and screaming into the 20th century, not even the 21st century, the 20th century, to allow things like, more than one shot a second,
Draw.
holster draw, yeah, all that. And some of these people will freak out because, well, let's be honest, uh, many of these ranges are run by people that don't want that. Hey, and I know it'll surprise some people. Some of the ranges fight back at carry classes being done in their range. Uh, Everything from, oh, our insurance won't cover it, to they just don't believe in civilians carrying firearms. And to somebody that's a novice at this, or maybe don't spend a lot of time in ranges actually having conversations with the range owners, it would surprise you. But yeah, there are a lot of people out there that just want to make money like gym owners. You know what I mean? I mean, if it's some gym owners, they could have nobody ever work out in the gym, but have 20,000 members, they'd be happy.
Or have
And then,
contracts with the law enforcement and security agencies so that they book it and the rest of the time they get to sit around.
yeah, they get to sit around
Like
and tell
tennis courts,
stories.
maybe, where they get to, like, some instructors use it and like a random kid will play tennis, but like most of the time they're probably just sitting there looking at an empty tennis court.
Yeah, yeah, their biggest nightmare is actually for tennis to become really popular, really popular. They're just guys and girls just showing up to play a game, and they don't, everybody's not quiet, and everyone's not whispering. It's really something you'd have to be in the culture to actually understand, to
I
know.
totally get what you're saying, and I think there's probably a list of reasons because there's
Yeah,
like again like they're just being comfortable with
well,
people who
there
they think
is.
are professional or something. But the same way that constitutional carry is that kick in the butt, now with 29 states, it's pretty tough for someone to go, well, there's going to be blood in the streets. Like, well, there's
Yeah,
not, because it's been that way
there's
for
not.
decades and there's not. So it's,
Yeah,
isn't
we're
it?
29. We're 29 states deep without blood in the streets. How did that happen?
But these ranges that would have apprehension, I'm put it nicely to
Hmm.
give them a benefit of the doubt or whatever, but there could be all
Yeah,
kinds of reasons. Um, or anyway, so then giving them a new NRA, what's the word? Like
curriculum.
infrastructure means,
Mhm.
yeah, like, but method, rules, I guess is easier way to say it. Like,
Yeah,
meaning, yeah, now you can draw because guess what? The NRA understands that drawing's a thing. Again, but they wrote these things back when no one even put a clothing on it. And if
uh-huh.
you carried, it was open carry back in the old days. You carried like a cowboy. It was unethical to put your gun underneath clothing like a criminal would, literally, right? And anyway, so I'm just thinking, is it good? It would be a positive kick in the butt for these
Uh-huh.
stick in the mud, let's call them ranges, and everything else, like instructors and everything else that's affected by NRA to get that incentive, whatever, to get them moving into, like you
Oh
say, the
yeah,
2020s.
yeah. And I mean, I work with some of these places, and you got to understand this is their business too. Um, it's funny because before I became a 2A advocate, I'd go to the range and shoot, and that was my thing. I was just having fun doing that. And then I decided to become an instructor, and I was at the range and having fun doing that. But when I became an advocate and started working with more and more ranges, you got to know people and have conversations, and then you see what's behind some of the decisions they're making. And you talk to firearms manufacturers because I'm trying to get sponsorships, and you start seeing what's behind some of the decisions they're making. And things that would frustrate me is like, well, why won't certain companies ship to New Jersey? You're a gun company. Don't you want to make money? Well, not when the AG is suing you, and you realize that many of these firearms companies are small businesses. Some of them have more, you have more fingers on your hand than they have people in their shop. And a lawsuit could take them out financially. So some of their lawyers just go, yeah, we're not shipping to New Jersey. And you go, okay, that's just one state out of 50. Fine, we won't ship to New Jersey. Uh, is what it is. You start to understand at least where they're coming from, even if you go, well, that's a freaking cop out. I don't have to pay their bills. You know what I mean? And their employees might be family. So not only are they going out of business, but their entire family's going out of business. Many of them are small companies, or small, family businesses. Clark Custom. Everybody there is a Clark family. Hell, High Point. It's Charlie and his two kids, and then the other employees. But that's a family business. But that doesn't stop him from staying 10 toes down to the point that he's running for the NRA board. But still, you know what I'm saying. And you start to learn these things when you start meeting these people and actually having these conversations. And you try to, and again, I live in New Jersey, so I'm working with the ranges I work with. They had more freedom in Pennsylvania to do different things with me, especially during COVID, because that's when the Second is for Everyone grew, was during COVID. I was at Gun for Hire Range. COVID happened. The governor of New Jersey decided, since it was a state of emergency, they were going to shut down every range in the state, and they took that opportunity. I thought it was the end of the Second is for Everyone diversity shoots, but nope, it was not. One of the rangers reached out to me from Pennsylvania and says, you need to come here and you can host every month. And that's what I did until another range opened up in New Jersey that didn't fall under the purview of the state of emergency. And then I got to be at that range. And then finally, the Supreme Court cases came through and they said they had to open up ranges as essential. And I was able to get back to Gun for Hire. So during COVID, before it even ended, the quarantines ended, I was at 3 ranges in 2 states. So it took work and it took going outside the state of New Jersey for me to actually continue the mission. And because we never lost momentum, we were able to pick back up in the state of New Jersey when we could, and it opened back up. And then when people saw we were at 3 ranges, I got invited out to Omaha, Nebraska, and I was able to put out 3 diversity shoots out there and met another circle of people. And that showed multiple ranges in New Jersey that we could work with anyone, whether inside the state or outside the state. And that's where we're at now. We're at 5 different ranges in New Jersey alone. I just spoke to the NRA ILA uh, representative for pretty much most of the Midwest. I worked with him when we were in Omaha, and he's really wanting to get something going on in um, in the Midwest again. And I told him, if not this year, next year, we can work on a Midwest tour because I have to become a charitable organization, an official charitable organization, so I can work with nonprofits, other nonprofits, and we can get it going. Oh, what range in Pennsylvania? I was actually at the Heritage Hill in Easton, PA. And hopefully, there's another range. I actually know the range owner. He came to one of our first events uh, outside of Philly. He's outside of Philly, so hopefully we can work together this year, and I can get down to see his range, and we can work on getting butts and seats at his range. The crazy part is when you open up at a new range, usually, if you don't have a lot of range support, that first couple, the place is empty. People aren't there, and you have to use word of mouth. You have to use social media to get people to go, "Whoa, I didn't even know you were here." And it's hilarious because you think people would pay attention to what's around them. And I'm not being insulting, but my parents own a locksmith shop, and I've been working there, I think, like 6 years. And there were still people that lived in that town that would come in and go, "When did you guys open up?" It's like, we've been here 6 years. Beside the post office you go to every Saturday, like next door to the post office you go to every Saturday, and you didn't see it. So it's really you can host events at ranges for years, and people still go, "Hey, listen, you ever come to my range?" Well, what range is that? They'll name the range, and it's like, I've been there for 4 years." What? Yeah, we host events there. So I think one of the things I might do, because I've been talking to people about print advertisements and doing things like that. And maybe I'll have to put up posters in each of these ranges showing the dates throughout the year that we're going to be there. So there's something physical in the range that you can actually see that we're hosting diversity shoots.
Dude, that's a great idea because I don't know if well, you do a different thing because you do so much stuff at different ranges. You go to ranges for different, other
Hmm.
reasons or whatever. But when I would just go shooting or whatever, I'm trying to think now. Like I was probably 6 or 8 times that I can think of now where we would go to the range on a specific day for like a good length of time, like for months at a time. And I never was in. Was I? I guess I was in a couple of what are those things called? Like not clubs, but when you go shoot sports at a range, why can't I think of it? Matches or whatever. I was in a
Hmm.
couple of matches at the one range for a little while because I did an indoor match, which was kind of fun. But anyway, you go whatever it is you're doing at a range is usually like on your day off or with your friends on their day off or something like that. So you're going there like on a Thursday. So the stuff that happens there on like Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, you got no idea, right? Unless they left a
None.
poster up or unless there's some
Hmm.
residual from it. Yeah, that makes great sense because most people, I think, have their head looking at their shoes or their phone these days. Go in, they pay for whatever they're doing. They're taking their selfies and they're taking their pictures, making their reviews or whatever they're doing, while they're there, I guess shooting a little bit. And then they
Hmm.
leave, right? And they might be looking around while they're paying. And that's where that poster can let them know what's going on. And plus, it's just good for what's the word? Like if somebody's thinking about, I want to do something, and they
Hmm.
watch maybe with that poster, put a jar down, and then they can go, oh, I'm going to put my change in that jar for that, whatever that poster is doing. I like that.
Yeah, because I mean, I'm thinking about it while we're here. And what do you call those little things? Fudge knuckles. We made them up before when we were doing training. Um, it's not a poster. Like the kind of handout.
A flyer.
Yeah, like a flyer, like a stiff back flyer. It's not just a sheet of paper, but it's actually one of those things you can actually hand out. I'm such a moron because we had them made up, but we
Pamphlet.
put them there. Yeah, not a pamphlet. Frick frack. I'd have to look it up. But anyways, like a flyer, but it'll have the QR code on it. So you can actually go directly to like something like Eventbrite and buy a ticket then, or even donate to, anything from our PayPal to uh, become a Patreon. Like right there, a handbill. Yeah, there you go. Like a handbill, just sitting there, and you can pick it up, and it's made out of quality paper, and the guys can hand it. You can scan it. You can go directly to the website. Like all that can be done now on something that's not that complicated. Back in the day, you'd have to have everything written on it. Here's the way you can mail. You can mail to Pueblo, Colorado, and send us a check for a quarter, and we'll send you this pamphlet. Well, now you can just scan it with your phone and go directly to the website and go directly to our, social media pages and see where we're about. Follow me on X so I can talk about what racist New Jersey politicians are. I'm trying to get this story some traction. So is John Petrolino and Cam Edwards about New Jersey having a messed up carry permit process that has proven itself to be racially biased to the point they're denying black people carry permits at 50 times the rates of white applicants in New Jersey. Have you seen that?
Not
That's
recently.
when
I've seen it from it had to be more than 2 years ago.
it was John Petrolino kicked something out, I think in April, May, March, something like that of last year, that said it was at twice the rate, and that was just using the information on the Attorney General's website. Well,
Wasn't there like a senator or somebody from New Jersey
hmm
that said something like, "Well, let him move" or some shit?
oh yeah, that I actually posted that on my IG not more than half an hour ago. Um, his comment with his voice saying it. Um, but no, what happened is John did the legwork and discovered that yes, blacks are being turned down at twice the rate, only using the information on the state website. Well, that instigated an organization called Rise Against Hate or Rise Against the Hate, and they actually looked into it county by county and discovered on average, it's 10 times the rate black permit applicants are being denied compared to white. And understand, to be an applicant for a carry permit is the exact same process that you had to go through to own a firearm in the first place. So if you own a firearm, you've passed all the requirements outside of, taking the test, on the range, taking the range test. You've passed all the qualifications. So for them to deny you without giving you a reason is illegal. Well, in some counties, blacks are being denied at 50 times the rate of white applicants. And the attorney general nor the governor will make a comment on it. And that's been put out, and we're just trying to help get it national traction because it's blatantly obvious. Here we are, just hitting the middle of, this is actually the middle of Black History Month, and New Jersey is actively denying black people that have passed every background check and taken and passed every test that you put in front of us, and you still won't allow us carry permits. Now, understand these people already have a firearm, and have for years. I mean, I've had firearms in this state going on over a decade now. And if they turn me down, well, what they can also do, because now you were turned down for a carry permit, well, obviously you're a risk and you can actually lose your firearms ID card and your right to own firearms in New Jersey because you were turned down for a carry permit without a reason. Welcome to the state of New Jersey.
Yeah,
They
that's
will
pretty messed
violate.
up. And obviously
Yeah,
nobody's saying anything about it to any extent or to any
nope,
magnitude.
not any magnitude. They can
Well,
take
how
your
would you
right
know
away to
though?
own.
How would you fucking know? Like, right? Like, and then
Yep.
how would you know unless somebody? Well, I mean, nobody's even talking. I've never heard of the idea that you can be. I mean, I don't like the idea that you have to be okayed to own a gun in the first place. But it sounds
Hmm.
like you have to have a check just to make sure you can own a gun. And then they
Yep.
say, okay, well, do you have to have a permit to purchase?
Yes.
Ugh. It's been a while since
Yeah.
I went through all of the different rules that states have. So for people that are listening and don't have to deal with these, so some states have a permit to own. And do you have that?
Hmm. Yes.
Okay, so they
You
have to
have
have
to
a
have a
permit
permit.
just to own and then
Yep.
possess probably. And then you also have to have a separate permission in order to purchase it. So that's
Yep.
you first you have to, I mean, which you probably have to get your permit to own first, or maybe at the same time you can get your first gun. But essentially they got to get a permit just to own and ask permission and say thank you by paying a fine to
Hmm.
own, and then you got to do it again every time you want to buy a gun. But in this
Yep.
case, it sounds like if you apply then for your CCW, and after all of that get denied for some reason that they won't tell you, now they take
Hmm.
away the other privileges, quote unquote.
Yep.
And again, and that could happen to how many people before it becomes a thing that people are going to, like John is going to look into and sound the alarm on, and then how long will it be before anybody gives a shit enough to do anything about it? That's
Hmm.
frustrating as shit.
Yeah, it's frustrating. It's very, very frustrating as someone that's here, and you're going,
Well,
the
frustrating for
perm.
me to hear. I can't imagine the scale of it on your side. Yeah.
Yeah, so I brought this up at Thursday's event, and you should have seen the looks on people's face. Now, because I have Second Amendment organizations right there, I can include them in the conversation. And they're like, yeah. I went to the vice president of CNJFO, and I was like, well, what happens, Rosie, when this happens and this happens? And he goes, yeah, they can take your right to own all firearms away because they sit there and illegally, by the way, denied you your ability to own a firearm. I mean, excuse me, to carry a firearm, and now they've tied that to your ability to own a firearm. Again, illegally tied it to your because according to Bruin, they can't deny you something that's based on fudge. What's the word they use? It can't be something that they made up. It has to be something in your face. It can't be. Dang, I hate when
Arbitrary.
I. Yeah, it can't be an arbitrary, and that's not even the correct word, but close enough. It can't be an arbitrary reason. It has to be something based in fact, not a feeling. And that's pretty much where they are. Oh, it's safety. Well, what's the safety concern? I passed the background check to own a firearm. I put in paperwork, paid all the fees, got the background check to purchase a handgun. This is my 37th handgun and my 112th long arm. And now I'm asking for permission to carry a thing. And I already have carry permissions, permits in like 7 different states. Now you're telling me I can't carry in New Jersey because you said so. And not only that, since I can't carry in New Jersey because I failed, to get a permit, now you're telling me I can't even own firearms because you failed me. Well, what's the reason? Oh, we don't have to give you one. Safety. What's safety? Like, do I have
One on the
speeding
screen.
tickets?
Um, all right, so we have a question on the screen here. Now people are answering it. So the first question that
Okay,
was asked today, we're getting around to it
cool.
now, is Woods asked the best, or he says gun question, best handgun for a lefty, or does it matter? I'm assuming he means people that are liberal, like left political
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. It
tendencies,
means yeah. Hmm.
but he could mean left-handed people also, I guess. But I don't know. I was thinking about it for a lefty. I grew up with people that are left-handed, the left-handed persuasion, people who choose to be left-handed, and then I've known people through the YouTubing adventures that chose to be left-handed, and I don't know that the left-handed people in my life have ever cared enough. I think it's I don't know. I don't know how to explain it because I'm not left-handed, but they either have just adapted enough that they don't care, or they've never. There's no one to gripe to, so they don't gripe about it. But I can't think of anything where they've ever went, "Oh, now this is a gun for a left-handed person." I think for a minute when ambies came along, controls on both sides right away, people liked it, but the people I know most recently that are left-handed, like not when I was growing up because it wasn't a thing, but nowadays when people carry and stuff, nobody wants levers on both sides of their guns that move your slide or don't move your slide. Like, first off, nobody wants that, and I don't like the idea of having buttons on both sides of my gun that release the magazine. That's just too much to keep track of, and if you're actually using your gun, you'll figure out why that's annoying. Like, there's just too many things that happen to your gun that you don't want that many levers on your gun. So for left-handed people, they just use their guns differently than us. And when you get to revolvers, it's no better because of the way they open. So again, I've never heard of anybody in all of time saying, as a left-handed person, like, "Oh, if only revolvers opened the other way." You know what I mean? Like, I don't think I've ever heard that ever even said. And I've never even, of all the left-handed ARs and everything else they've never made a left-handed pistol that I'm aware of that has like the chamber or the ejection port on the left side and the controls on the right, opposite. And they've never made a revolver flip the other way, except for the NAA. But and that definitely wasn't done for lefties. That was just the only way they could do it. So anyway, I don't think there is a best gun for lefties. Is my answer. Tony might have a different answer.
Yeah, I really do. Get yourself a Schofield revolver.
So a top break
Yeah,
revolver.
there you top break. Yeah, Schofield or Irving or Irving Johnson.
Actually, that's
Ivory
a
Johnson.
great answer, and I think those are super smart revolvers too, right? They can really be good.
Yeah, I mean, if you're left-handed and just, not gonna want to figure out how to use anything else, there you go. I agree with you about having controls on both sides of the firearms. Everything is cute until you lean up against something to get knocked against something and hit that opposite side mag release and shoot your mag out of your gun doing a struggle, and now you have a single shot if you don't have a magazine disconnect. Now you have a single shot, and if you do have a magazine disconnect, then you just got an awkward pair of brass knuckles to try to beat someone with. So, as far as left-handed guns, listen, you're a very small percentage of the population. You've learned to fight through everything in life. Your firearm is just going to be another thing. More than likely, you'll have to fight your way through, especially when it comes to a handgun. When it comes to rifles, I know Stag Arms makes left-handed firearms, left-handed rifles. That's all I know off the top of my head. And again, if you have to use something that's ambi or something that you can just switch the mag release around, do it. It only makes sense. Switch the mag release around so it's on the side that you can actually use it. As far as slide release, run the slide. Don't use the release. Don't use the little button if it's not ambi. Just make it part of your manual of arms that when you pull it out, you have to chamber around. The only way you do it is racking the slide. That's actually how James Yeager would teach it. Anytime you slap a mag in, you rack the slide. You don't use the slide release or slide catch or whatever, bull crap, minutia that people want to get caught up in calling that little lever on the thing. Just run the slide every time. And I don't think that would be a problem.
That's the kind of the mittens and gloves philosophy, and I wasn't going to get into it, but since you brought it up, the idea that dexterousness isn't
Yeah.
something you want to practice. You want to practice as if you were wearing mittens, because when you get crazy, confused, scared, adrenaline rush, whatever the situation is that you have to pull a gun out, that's not when you want to start having to think about playing a great piano piece with two hands. Like, you want to be throwing snowballs with Mick. Hold on.
Now, again, I'll take a class, and if that's what the instructor says do, that's what I'll do. But when I'm on my own and when I'm running stuff, I switch between them all. If you watch me doing some time shooting, either running the stage in outlaw IDPA, or shooting in the police competitions. Um, Sometimes I use a slide release, sometimes I use the rack method. It really doesn't make a difference to me, and I think it's one, I look at a lot of the stuff instructors teach as their dogma. It's just another WWE finishing move. Everybody has to have their way, and I don't truly believe that. I believe they should be taught different ways and use what's comfortable for you, especially if you're not familiar with the firearm. Like maybe you're not used to hitting that, so you just run the slide every time. Like if you run a high point does not have an external slide release, and so does other guns. But I just know off the top of my head, a high point doesn't have an external slide release. So you're gonna have to run the slide. Israeli method, they teach you to run the slide. Let's not go into that whole crap. But the Israelis teach you to run the slide because when they started as a country and they started as an army, they had handguns from all over the world. And the best way to teach you was just do the exact same thing. So they just racked the slide on every one of them, every semi-automatic handgun that had a slide, and that's how you chamber it around. So, again, I don't going to argue with an instructor that I'm paying money to teach me their method. So if you tell me you want to run the slide every time, I'll run the slide every time. Do I believe in the whole mittens thing? Hell no, because nothing's finer than pulling that trigger when the sights align. So somehow my index finger will freaking work, but my thumb won't. Doesn't make sense.
Oh, okay,
But
hold
I
on.
mean,
Sorry, so I'm back again. The mittens and gloves thing is more than
mhm,
just the whatever the ability to use your fingers or what. It's also that in a gunfight you might not have all those fingers anymore. So you want to be
yeah,
able to do like ingrain actions that take
mhm,
less fine detail. So you might lose your trigger finger. You better get used to shooting with another finger, unless you don't want to fight anymore. But then I guess the other side of that is I was going to say all my opinions on left-handed stuff is
Hmm.
because whenever I was actually paying attention and shooting a lot, I tried to shoot as much with my left hand as with my right hand because it's
Hmm.
super easy to shoot with something I grew up shooting with. It's much harder to
Hmm.
shoot with something I didn't pay that much attention to. We would shoot left-handed every once in a while just for shits and giggles when we were growing up, or maybe if you're having a BB gun fight or something, you'd have to shoot with your left hand because of the way you're reaching out of a bush or something. But so we knew from playing that you're going to have to use both hands. But I never really practiced both hands until I started actually thinking about training, and actually carrying a gun makes you start thinking about training more than just playing, right? Like, oh, I'm going to be
Hmm.
in a militia, so I'm going to train. Oh, that's cool. Like, you're allowed to, and I encourage you to do so. And you should, if you're going to do that, go nuts and do it well, right? Like, do it well.
Yep.
Learn what can, all the different opinions are, and choose the one that, or the hybrid of stuff that you think is great, and work on it. But in reality, when you're carrying on your pistol on your hip or whatever in your pocket or in your purse all day, then for 9mm people, I won't include everybody, then you want to be able to have realistic uh, theories about what you can do, what you can't. Anyway, so that's where I was like, my left hand better work as good as my right hand, because in reality, you don't always have your right hand. Just facts of life. If I'm holding a dog back or I'm holding a kid or something, like I'm using my left hand
Or
for that.
hey, let's not bullcrap because again, training is the thing, and it's hilarious because people think, oh, I know how to, I don't need training. My granddaddy taught me to shoot. And I'm not saying your granddad, the Navy SEAL, paratrooper, police SWAT team member, didn't teach you to shoot. But did he tell you, hey, you remember that time you were playing basketball and you jammed your index finger and your right hand was actually all jacked up? Shoot with your left. What? Yeah, never thought of that. Close the car door on your finger. Shit. The older you get, the dumber the incidents get that make stuff stop working. Oh, you stretched the wrong way. You pulled your shoe on and actually stretched the tendon in your finger.
Bent over and tried to
Uh,
pick up your own shoe, so now you can't shoot with that hand.
yeah, and it's like, can you run the gun with your other hand? Why not? How come you haven't even tried it? And it's like because you drive with your left hand sometimes. You sit there and you somehow figure out to be ambi when you're driving. You're not going to figure it out when you're shooting. I mean, you're not going to figure out in an emergency. You can actually practice this and actually have thought about it and created that track in your mind to go, okay, I have to draw using my left hand, but I carry on my right hip. How do I do that? We'll figure that out. Now, I carry ambidextrously. Excuse me, not ambidextrously, appendix. I carry appendix. So when it comes to drawing, I can do it. I just have to be careful. And I've practiced that. I've practiced pulling my firearm out of the holster using my left hand, but I'm on my center line. It's easier for me to do. Um, but if you don't do it that way, you need to figure out how you're going to do it. You might have to carry differently if you injure your hand. And like you said, what if you have your dog on a leash? What if you carry? Now, being a friggin' old jarhead, they teach us all the time never to carry anything in your right hand in case you have to salute. So really, I usually don't have anything in my right hand, and that makes drawing easier. And it's hilarious because I noticed it one day walking into work that I switched my coffee cup from my right hand when I'm driving and sipping my cup of coffee to when I get out of the vehicle, I switch my coffee mug to my left hand, so it's free. Weird.
Now I'm wondering if they make you do that so that you're not getting in the habit of carrying stuff around with your right hand. I'll think of that every once in a while. I'm not like a ninja or nothing, but if I'm carrying something in my right hand, like if I'm walking out of a store or something, and I've got all my crap on my right hand, and
Hmm.
I'm not the person who's looking at their phone ever, so I've only, whatever hand I'm carrying it in is the hand I'm carrying it in. Every once in a while, I'll be like, that's stupid. I'm going to put it in my left hand because of, why not? Like, why would I waste my good hand? What if I just need to, like, I don't know, pole vault over something or grab something? Like, I want my good hand available. It's
Hmm.
just.
Well,
Plus,
it
it's
also
probably
made
good
me
for your
laugh.
offhand to get stronger to carry stuff once in a while because it's always getting a free ride.
Yeah, right. But also, it made me laugh when there was this whole stupid ass trend going around on social media. Guys talking about, I'll carry all the groceries in at one time because that's what men do. And I'm like, yeah, well, congratulations, guy. You've loaded your arms up and you can't even defend yourself because you have all your shit. It's like,
If you can
well,
draw at a 1.5 second
uh
two head count shots, then you can drop your shit, shoot, reholster, and grab your shit before the eggs break.
huh. Yeah, I was looking at this whole thing and I'm like, not a one of you has thought about defending yourself. I'm like, because I don't know, maybe it's because of where I live and where I've worked, i.e., New Jersey. And if you're from New Jersey, you know there's country places in New Jersey and boring places in New Jersey. Well, as a locksmith, I've worked throughout the state, mostly central and northern Jersey, where you have cities where the crime rate is higher. And when you go in and out of the grocery store, you go in and out of Home Depot, you got people there in the parking lot begging for money or looking for victims. Well, when both of your hands are full and your attention span has been lowered, you look like a victim. And it's just that simple. And if you're a smaller sized person, if you're a vulnerable population, you look older, you're walking with a limp, you have a hand in a cast, they look for this. So to think it's somehow manly to occupy both of your hands to the point that you look like you're trying to go for some Guinness Book of World Record of bringing in the frickin' groceries. Congratulations, you put yourself at a disadvantage intentionally to prove something that means nothing.
Get like a big carabiner or something like it, and then
Hmm.
you can put like a whole bunch of groceries onto that carabiner, and it'll look
Yep.
like a lot of stuff, but groceries don't weigh that much. And but Foss says I might choose to lose the fight rather than be mistaken for a left-handed person. I understand what he's saying, but what if the fight you're being losing to is a left-handed person?
Yeah, you
What
can't
if
let that happen, bro.
right, you're being beaten by a left-handed person? I don't know what you're supposed to do.
You can't take that
Um,
L, bro.
the John says, Trump, please, we the people need an executive order acknowledging the Second Amendment preemption and supremacy clause equals national constitutional carry. So this is different than national reciprocity. This would be a presidential, whatever they call it, executive order.
Yeah.
So that's not a law. That's president or the executive branch head telling all the people in the executive branch, so all the police and militaries, to do whatever the clause or whatever it says. But I've definitely seen this. I thought it actually said national reciprocity at first. So national constitutional carry is slightly different, but it's essentially the same thing, a presidential order decreeing it. Anyway, so it's a talking point. It's not really a question as much as this person has
Okay.
posted a bunch of different stuff throughout the day.
See,
But what's your thoughts on this one?
my thoughts on this is no. Now, the reason I said no, it doesn't, because again, I'm a Second Amendment absolutist. But understand, I'm saying no because everybody wants the easy button. This shit needs to be passed by Congress and the Senate. So it can't be shut down by the first executive that comes in and goes, yeah, I'm writing a presidential order that says this is no longer a thing. Now, it'll be great, but you see how lazy gun owners get when they think they're winning. They won't try if you give it to them. If you give it to them, they won't try to fight for it. And that's the most frustrating thing as an advocate to watch this happen. And don't tell me it won't happen because I watch people do absolutely nothing from 2016 to 2018 to get Republicans off their ass to be pro 2A. There was not one pro Second Amendment thing passed legislation wise on a national level during Trump's first administration. And it definitely wasn't done during the first 2 years of his administration when he had the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And it was the Republicans themselves that shut it down and sabotaged it. There wasn't a big push from the Democrats, it was Republicans. So my problem is if you have the president to go, hey, constitutional carry is a thing, or whatever he can sign legally to make it an order for us to carry nationwide and shut down this crap, that could be reversed with the first person, like what's his name did the first day of his presidency, like January 20th. That law can immediately be changed, and I'd rather us go through it. You actually have to have a political movement to change it back. So in my mind, I mean, it's great if we get our way, but people will take their foot off the gas pedal if you give it to them, and that's the frustrating thing. Yes, if I lived in a dream world, I would be like, yeah, give us the right so I could carry in my state easily without worrying about having all of my firearms taken away because they base my permit on my color. Yeah, I'd love that. But reality is gun owners are lazy as hell and they won't fight for their rights. not when they already think they have them. And it's very frustrating because it makes me sound like some kind of wishy-washy anti, and that's just not the fact. The fact is, I've been doing this and paying attention long enough to know how people work, and that is not how they do it. All of a sudden, you stop caring if you got what you want. You'll get pissed off 2 to 4 years from now when somebody comes in and changes it, but then the political landscape has changed, and your opportunity to make it happen has gone away. So, yeah, we have to kick ass right now and make these things law. And then we don't have to wish for somebody to do anything. Just make it happen. And it becomes law and it becomes harder for them to take it away. We have to become politically active.
I'm going to say almost the same thing, but a little bit different.
Okay.
The same result, but I'm just going to say it differently. Uh, the reason we need to have it be, well, let's see, for constitutional carry, technically, I think constitutional carry is a state thing for one. So I don't want to see the president even touch it. They don't have that power. They don't need that power. Get away from that power.
Hmm.
We don't, that shouldn't even be on the table. But for the states, if somehow each of the governors, the same plea went out and all the governors answered it and said, okay, we'll grant national constitutional or we'll grant constitutional carry to each state because we're only less than 20 states or whatever we are, 20 something states away now.
29 states. Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, like from having it all, like that's only like 20, 21 states, I guess, that are
Hmm.
not constitutional carry yet. So if those states did it, the problem is with like same thing what you said. That's just what I'm going to say is we'd be better off when, because I don't want to say if, but when our national level organizations figure out that they have the power to change the Overton window through their power, right? Because the power of
Hmm.
the national level organizations is to collect a shit ton of our money and then work
Hmm.
for us, right? And their job has been to do that, except that since they all grew up, I kind of gave you the description of how they all came about from the 1960 result of the reaction to the 1968 Gun Control Act in their three different ways. That's what they were born from, the 1968 Gun Control Act. So they started suing people and suing people, except for the one single action of the 1977 revolt of the NRA when they said we should have an ILA, and that was a grassroots effort to change the direction of the NRA. That is what we need to see more of. But that was Knox, and everybody
Hmm.
doesn't have a piece of Knox, so they can't advocate for him, right? Which they should.
Yep.
But since he didn't, he was a rogue. He was like he would have been ideal now. People would have loved him now. But back then,
Hmm.
since nobody owned Knox, then nobody shouted his accomplishments. But his big accomplishment was to get the NRA to change direction in 1977 through faxes, from what I understand, and like that automatic calling people on the telephone with a robot. Like that's the kind of technology they use to be able to get enough NRA members to all put on a hat at noon, and that showed the NRA board that enough of the NRA members were on board for being aware instead of hiding in New Mexico that the NRA created the ILA and stayed. So we need more of that. We can change the playing field. We can change the Overton window through education and awareness. And it sounds boring and lame, but it's actually super cool.
Yep.
And what we accomplish there is we show people not like we're better than you, we're right, we'll arm wrestle you, we'll fucking yell about it, we'll have a dance off, like we're going to somehow win. Fuck all that. We need to show people that gun owners are their fucking friends and that they should fear us no more than they fear anybody that drives a car. Like when
Yep.
criminals use a car as a getaway or when a criminal uses a car to run somebody over, that's a criminal. When a criminal gets drunk and drives around recklessly, that's a criminal. But the rest of car owners have nothing to fear, right? Like the gun owners, we need to accomplish that to where the right now, what do we got against us? We got one rich ass fucker and a bunch of
Hmm.
people who are invested in getting paid by that rich fucker. So once that
Hmm.
rich fucker's off the table and there's no incentive for a new rich fucker to come along and nobody's getting paid to hate guns, they're going to get paid to hate something else or paid to be a dick about something else. And they'll leave guns alone because they're not getting paid to do it. They have no conviction other than the paycheck. So there's ways that we can change the playing field. And once we've accomplished that, laws are nothing because the laws don't even need to exist. Better, like Arizona did when I tried to figure this all out. What's constitutional carry anyway? constitutional carry is taking an eraser to the state law that says you can't carry a gun here and here and here. They just erase that.
Hmm.
Or
Yep.
actually, there's a part that says you can carry a gun here if you have a CCW, and they erase the part that says if you have a CCW. And then it's just the lack of laws. So once we have enough people on board that gun owners are not we're a victim right now. But once we're not a victim anymore and we're just somebody who they're not afraid of, then there's nobody coming after us. And mom's demand can get all mad or whatever, but if nobody supports them, nobody supports their
Right.
position, then nobody supports
Yeah.
their position.
Mom's demand ain't even real. That's the
Uh,
annoying part. It is not a grassroots organization. It was formed by a lady that was paid to form an organization.
Hold on,
Um.
paid by the Monsanto lady who
Yep.
was who's the reason she got paid by Bloomberg is because she's the one that was Monsanto's what's that name of that root killer that killed did stuff, and she was like the PR person for Drain
Yep.
X or Root X or some shit from
Yep.
Monsanto, and they're like, oh, you're a,
You're
like a
good at
hot
this.
shot of doing whatever you need done, like you're a wordsmith, and Bloomberg's like, you know what we need you to do?
Hmm.
Act like a grassroots mom, be astroturf or whatever the word is,
Yep.
and
AstroTurf.
but yeah,
And people bought into it because it's a story. Ooh, girl
nobody challenged
power.
it. Nobody challenged
No
it.
one,
She'd go on the View,
no
and
one
no one is
challenged
like
it at
standing
all.
up in the audience and saying, "Hey, wait a minute, aren't you Monsanto lady? Didn't you try to tell us that like Rudex was okay for us to eat?"
Yeah, it was poison and it was horrible. Until the lady that because girl power and stupidity and accountability. Oh, and the people whose shows they were on, yeah, they're getting paid by the same billionaire. It's called commercials.
Oh, I was watching. I'm not sure what was I watching. I was watching one of the interviews though, and they made an interesting point about why you see all these ads
Mm-hmm.
uh, on the TV about like pills and stuff, like so and so pills, like it'll make your day better. Like lawyers speak at
Mm-hmm.
the end, like don't do this and don't do that. And he's saying, like you listen to those things, like who's listening to those commercials? Like who gives a shit? Like why is a pill
Mm-hmm.
commercial on anything? And he said, and I've never heard this before. Oh, this was on an ironclad change agents, I think. Did you hear this one? And he goes, it's because
I've heard what you're gonna say, but yeah, go ahead.
he says it's because that way they own all the ad blocks. So they can come to a company like, radio station or a
Mm-hmm.
magazine or a television station, and they'll buy like 50% or 25% of their ad revenue and put these stupid commercials up that are like, buy Gleamax, it makes you gleam better. And it's like, what the fuck is this commercial on? Well, it's because whenever then Gleamax turns out that it kills you, and they're going to do an article on why Gleamax is going to kill you, they'll be like, oh well, you know what, about those ads, we're not sure if we want to do. And these companies are like depending on 1/5 of their ad budget coming from these companies. And I'm like,
Okay.
it sounds conspiratorial, but I never heard that before. It's interesting that like
Yeah.
they do that just because it doesn't cost them shit. They make billions, so it doesn't cost them
Yep.
shit to support these companies. And then whenever they need to, they can just you know suggest they're going to repull all their advertising.
Yeah. What? Yeah, I heard them, and they used the example of the pharmaceutical companies on the news. Same. Pharmaceutical companies just buy ads. And you're like, Jesus Christ, I don't remember seeing this many ads growing up. Yeah, because they figured it out. Exactly what you said. It's kind of hard to have somebody do in depth reporting if they know they're going to lose most of their advertising. You can be the most ticked off. You could be the Clark Kent of reporting and always trying to get a scoop. But if the managing editor goes, yeah, we're not putting that out there because we'll lose, a significant portion of our advertising budget, and that's what pays your paycheck. It's not getting told. Also, welcome to adulthood, and you find out really how cheaply people can be bribed. I didn't know it until I was in New Jersey, and they arrested the mayor of Trenton, Tony Mack, for taking bribes as little as $2,000. I'm like, bro, 2 grand? Like you took a bribe that couldn't even get you a good used car? Yeah. So I think that's part of when you discover that people can be bribed easily and for very little money. That's one of the lessons life taught me. So when you're looking at these anti-gun politicians, yeah, they're not millionaires because somebody gave them millions of dollars. It doesn't take much to pay somebody because they get money from a bunch of different people in a bunch of different areas. That's why
And they don't
people are
have to
so
get
far
money.
ahead.
If you follow
Oh yeah.
if there's a couple of things that follow their stock stuff, they just have to get a tip once in a while. Like,
Yep.
hey, buy, sell, whatever, right? Like when it's necessary, like sell everything and buy this, or buy everything and, or I mean, sell everything and put the money on in a pile because we're about to fuck shit up. And then,
Yep.
so if they're not losing and they can win big once in a while, you can make a lot of money. It's the not losing part too that helps them. And that's the part where it's like, oh, we don't get paid. Yeah, but you get told when to
Yeah.
take your money off the fucking table all the time.
Yep. Oh, you guys just believe anything. And now it seems to be coming true, and you can actually, there's receipts coming out in the news every day that this is true.
Have,
Not making
uh,
it up.
I don't want to get political. There's a lot of stuff that
Nope.
comes around, goes around. Like I'm seeing, like everybody's complaining about this, but then whenever Clinton
Uh-huh.
was doing it, it's happening. It was happening too.
Yep. Oh, this
Um,
is not new. This is not
and it's
new, and it's
probably like
frustrating.
been happening since Lincoln and shit, and since Washington
Yes.
almost. Like this shit is just plain
Yes.
old games that they know that we don't pay attention to. They don't teach it to us, so why would we know?
Why was it, what machine would teach you how to operate it? Of course not. They take civics out, they have all kinds of stuff in. My whole thing is we're trying to make educated people hear and know how the process works. So when we're asking to get involved, yes, this is what's involved in politics. You have to talk to them. One of the strategies I picked up from one of the guys that donates to me and helps me out, he was like, you have to donate. Well, he was like, you don't have to be a big donor. You don't have to donate hundreds of dollars. A $20 donation makes you a donor. Now you're totally different than just someone that votes. You're a donor to their campaign. You're on another level. You're hiring somebody that fills out, just a basic email. What do you call those emails? Like when you go to NRA and they're like, oh, send NRA ILA's page. And they're like, here, sign your email here and we'll send this email
Foreign
to the,
mail,
what was
foreign
that?
mail, a foreign mail.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one level. Another is if you write the email yourself and you send it from, John Smith at Yahoo, that's another level. And another level is when you write them actually a snail mail. That's another level. And then a phone call is another level. Like all that, they react to you differently according to how much effort you put in contacting them. But when you're a donor, whole nother level. You're a donor that votes. Now they can't see who you vote for, but they can see if you vote. So people that go, I'm not voting. Well, you're not doing yourself any favor, and you're definitely not going to be paid attention to. So the important part is you got to do the work. I hear a lot of people, and you do too, in the firearms community, talk about vote from the rooftop and other silly crap. And it's like, bro, you're not voting from the rooftop because you won't go vote. You won't physically go vote. So I don't worry about you voting from a rooftop. You're not going to start a revolution, guy. We have to put in work to do this. It's boring work, like you said. It's nothing sexy about going to
Well,
vote.
it is though. It is kind of cool. I mean, that's the thing is if you get the right people. If we ever have
Mhm.
a chat where we talk more about this, not like an hour something into the show, well, maybe we could chat about it. Like, who would be those people? I need to get a show going again, and one of the things I've thought about doing is I want to do interviews, and I like
Mhm.
to, when I was doing my shows weekly, is because I like to do a lot of chatting about guns, and that was the best way to break it up. But the frustrating thing was I'd like to do an interview every Wednesday if possible with just different people in the 2A, not just guns, but
Mhm.
like the Second Amendment realm. Because there's definitely
Yeah.
enough of them that you'd have a whatever 52 weeks in a year, you wouldn't even touch a
Oh,
quarter of them
definitely.
every year. So that's where I
Yeah.
was like, it'd be neat is to have like maybe three, maybe I should do it this way, three interviews a month, like on Mondays, but then that fourth Monday, like a round table. I've attempted roundtables, I don't really know, fucking dozens of times over the years and just never figured out a time or a way to get enough people in it that it attracted people to it. Maybe for a little while here and there, but never like really. I mean, I could definitely get gun people into it and I could get chat people into it, but getting Second Amendment advocates into it was tough. And I think a portion of that is I was doing it years ago when the Second Amendment advocates were not comfortable or familiar enough with going live. And now, after the bullshit year of everybody forcing everybody to go live and stuff, people are probably more like comfortable with it and like understand the concept now and have probably done it a few times so that they can, hold their own. But I think that
Well,
would be interesting to have like a get together on a regular basis with advocates to just kind of shoot the shit, but then throw some questions out there, like, what we kind of alluded to here, like, or like maybe even, what would the NRA be like 5 years from now, realistically, now that we know where it's the direction it might be headed in.
yep. I think it's good to get communication out there, and I think it's good for people to actually hear what the head of the organizations that supposedly fighting for your rights actually say when it's unscripted. Again, and I've told you this before, and I'll say it until they replace this guy. I'm not impressed by the new head of the NRA. I think he came from the publishing side of NRA, and I don't think he's ready for the advocacy side of NRA, because he's saying things like we just need to keep the laws we have now. Currently, we don't need new laws. And I was hoping to run into him when I was in Pennsylvania, but I missed him. Actually, I think I was talking to you when he came by, because something O'Keefe, what's his name from NRA magazine?
In the
Mark?
hallway. Yeah.
Mark O'Keefe. He came and I was sitting with the guys from High Point, and he was like, "Hey, yeah, the new president of NRA is coming around and saying hi to everybody." And I got out here to talk to you on the podcast, and I came back
Oh,
in. I forgot to ask. Oh yeah, yeah, he was at in Harrisburg. I just missed him because I wanted to actually speak to him directly and go, "Hey, can you stop saying that, or at least stop meaning that is more important?" Because there's fights in places like Jersey and Connecticut and different places that we're still fighting to get what quote unquote free states already have. I don't want a pistol purchase permit. I don't want to have to actually get permission to get a carry permit. Those laws, in my mind, need to change. It ain't helping me when the head of the NRA is going, "Yeah, we need to leave the laws like they are now." No, no, we don't. So I think it's good to get actually unscripted and conversations going with the head of Second Amendment organizations so you can know who to support. Who do you stand behind? Who stands for your perception of how Second Amendment advocacy should be?
I don't know how long that guy's term is or what, because I don't pay attention, but
Hmm.
if he's at all fuddish, I'm guessing he won't be there very much longer than uh, it takes for the new board to get on board and get a majority vote to get him out of there or to make it uncomfortable for him. I don't know who the best president would be at the NRA, but I guess what I kind of started that rant about was about my show and having like a get together chat would be like, who would be a good spokesman, not for the NRA necessarily, but if let's say NRA got their shit together and had the interest and the resources to get something going again. But like, would it be a Colion Noir? Would it be Diana? You know, uh,
Hmm.
who would be like a person? I don't know. Maybe like, I don't know. I could go on and on, right? There's so many people that could
Yep.
probably be in contenders, but somebody that could, or maybe a group. Obviously, it wouldn't be one person. There's no single Pied Piper or nothing. But like a group of people, if they could create a group or whatever that's called, to a team to get the message out there, who would not only be able to get the message out, but would also be like creative and open minded and like innovative and
See,
whatever new direction of like coming up with an actual message that's worth getting out there to change that Overton window, like I was talking about.
yeah, see, in my mind, and this is going to sound horrible, but I don't care. The day of the middle-aged white dude is over. They figured out how to counsel you just by calling you racist over and over and over again. So that's the hammer they use to beat you to death in the public eye. Because again, like the line from Blazing Saddles says, these are people of the earth, morons. And really, people buy into, the narrative that's being pushed by the mainstream media. So when you come with someone that's a minority and a female and, any combinations of what people have deemed protected groups, any combination of that swimming against the grain, going, yeah, this is all bull crap, and you are your own first responder, and it is your right, natural right, to be able to defend yourself against anyone who tries to hurt you. Well, now you just took their biggest sledgehammer away. You just took their best freaking iron out of the golf bag. You know what I mean? It's like, now what are they going to say? They're going to say the black lady is a racist because she supports the Second Amendment. You're going to say,
Would, I suppose, but it's definitely like their one that they flex the muscle they flex the
yeah,
most.
yeah. And I'm not saying that you can't be part of advocacy. I'm just saying if we're talking about a spokesperson, someone you put on the front line. I mean, look, dude, having Wayne LaPierre show up and be the face of the Second Amendment didn't do us any favors when you did it for 40 freaking years. You know what I'm saying? And especially the way the NRA accepted others, which was not
Dude,
really.
he wasn't. I mean, he was bad on so many ways. Like a guy who looked like he should have been, I don't know, like in
Yeah.
some kind of a suit on Wall Street or some kind of a shit, in a cheesy, never been worn, taken off the hanger for the first time hunting outfit, right? All orange and clean and
Uh-huh.
bullshit looking, holding a shotgun. He wouldn't know which end to hold if they didn't tell him. Standing there, like 6 feet off the parking lot at some, scenic overlook,
Yeah.
like kind of bullshit picture. That kind of shit
Stand in the
rubbed
parking
me
lot
the
of
wrong way in the.
Cabela's.
Yeah, exactly. We're
Yeah.
seeing that kind of shit in the '80s, and I'm like, this guy's
Yeah.
a tool. Like this guy, I look at that guy back then as the kind of thing like I wouldn't want to do this job. Nobody I know would want to do this job. The only kind of prick would want to do this job is an asshole. So, boom,
Hmm.
that's who you got doing the job. But it's
That's who
sort of
you
like
got.
president. Nobody wants to do it, so the only person who's going to stand up to do it is a crook or some kind of somebody with their own agenda. Like there's
Yep.
you know what I mean? Like there. But then I don't want to ruin it for the like truly service minded people, and there are those folks.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
And again, well, it's not like I don't work with him. I mean, I'm just
but you
talking
can
about the
tell those people
frustration
from a
level.
mile away, and they don't live in thousand
Yes.
dollar anything. They don't wear
No.
$1,000
Yeah.
suits ever. Like Jimmy Carter, right? Like somebody like you think of
Yeah.
somebody like that, not somebody who's paying
Yes.
$1,000 to get their hair cut.
Working in the advocacy thing, right? In Jersey, actually, boots on the ground. Yeah. The the middle-aged white guy not only is funding it, is most of my volunteers, especially when I first started. That's who was there for me. So it's not like I'm going, those people are useless. No, they figured out a way to shut you down instantaneously with bullshit. And that's totally unfair. And one of the most annoying and frustrating things I have when I'm posting up content about the diversity shoot is having to think about how it looks optically. And like, oh, dude, I got to make sure I get, this female in here or this person, and not too many pictures of the white guy shooting, because even our own community says dumb crap when that happens. Hey, where are all the black people? Why so many white men? And these are gun people. I'm like, you people are annoying because you're only concentrating on this just so you can complain about it. It's really annoying, and it's one of those things that I rarely talk about. About the
If we don't
frustration
talk
level of just
about
putting an image out there.
diversity,
Yeah.
right? If you don't talk about diversity, then you allow cultures to, I don't know what the word is. Like I don't say allow, but if you don't bring it up, sometimes it's not brought up, and
Hmm.
then two bubbles just never realize that they can merge. I just got a
Yeah.
lava lamp, so I've been thinking about this because I don't know if we waited for I was trying to do a review of this lava lamp. It turns out it takes like 5 hours for a lava lamp to get going. And then I was sitting there watching it once it was going, and it gets going a little faster as it gets warmer or whatever. But those bubbles, you know what I'm talking about, lava lamp, right? Wax coming up from the
Yeah.
heat source and then turns into like a blob of wax. And then that blob of wax hits the other ones up top like bowling balls, but when it gets down to the bottom, they all blend together again. And that's literally probably one of the reasons they're like watching a fire or something. You can just sit there watching them, and it's interesting, and it's like a lot of different things you could think of in life. There's like cycles and stuff, and the cycles are like they say history repeats itself, but with an echo or some shit, or like there's some little
Oh,
caveats to that I've heard before.
history doesn't repeat; it rhymes. Yeah,
Something like that, right?
multiple.
And it's like, you watch these things and the blobs are like all the same stuff, but when they're up at top, they're knocking into each other and they're fighting for space, and then they fall down to the bottom and they're all the same again, and then a new blob comes up and it's fighting for the spot the other one had. And anyway, if you don't talk about this, you allow, or the tendency is, or like right now, look at the people running on the board. So nobody's
Mm-hmm.
paying attention to this, I guess, or something. What are you supposed to do about it? If you don't talk about it, then you never figure out what to be done about it. But what happens is now a group of people might go, oh, well, there's only one lady on the board. There's
Mm-hmm.
Amanda who's already there. Sorry, there's two,
Mm-hmm.
but two out of three. Sorry, so whatever. Three out of, I'm just using an example. I could say left-handed people. I could say people with gray hair. I could say young
Mm-hmm.
people, but I could say
Yeah,
Hispanic
exactly.
because they're not represented anywhere. Like
Mm-hmm.
anywhere. Like they're not even on this, I don't think. So I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to say Hispanic. Then, or maybe I could say Greek or what the fuck. I could, pick out anything because if we're talking about diversity, maybe it's competition shooters, maybe it's people that like collecting, or maybe it's people that would represent the museums or something, right? But what happens is then all the people who represent the museums are like, oh, that board doesn't represent me. Like that board doesn't
Mm-hmm.
have anybody. I'm sitting here scrolling through the board again without it on the screen. I guess I could have had it on the screen,
Yeah.
but that board is, doesn't represent left-handed shooters enough. It doesn't represent, whatever my state. That's the other way you could look at it too, right? Like you're
Oh,
saying,
people do.
if the
It's
board is
annoying.
a bunch of people that have never been behind enemy lines and don't understand it,
Mm-hmm.
and they're like, yeah, the laws are where we're at. Like, quit making bad. They're thinking of it. Don't put more bad laws on us, but they're saying don't change the law, and that's
Mm-hmm.
two different meanings, right? Like that's a big different meaning. So anyway, if you don't talk about the diversity or lack of,
Yeah.
then because I think it goes a long way, because then people can go, all right, yeah, well, there's nobody that represents, left-handed shooters on this one. So as a left-handed shooter, I'm going to run for the board and I'll be on that list next week. And now,
Yep.
I'm an inspiration for other left-handed shooters. Why should we have so many of these, 9mm shooters? I'm going to have 45 represented here. And that's how I guess that's what I'm saying. That's how you achieve diversity, right? Is by just telling people like, hey, there's nothing stopping you. It's just right now we happen to have a bunch of old people, and I guess
Oh,
age is
believe me.
really a better one. Like, look at this.
Well,
Is there anybody young on this? Anybody of
yeah, but you
any
have to
other
be at a certain understand. You have to be of a certain financial
Knox?
position anyway to be able to do it back and forth. You
These
gotta
guys
be
look
able
pretty
to.
young.
Yeah, you gotta have enough money to be able to travel to these events, and be a part of the board meetings.
That's kind of true, but I also think that that can't be that big a thing. You know what I'm saying? Like playing, like you could
No,
do it on the cheap. But I hear what you're saying. Or I don't know if
yeah,
the NRA picks it up or not either. What
no,
is the
they
NRA?
don't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they don't. So now all of a sudden, hey, yeah, you need to get to DC this week, and you need to stay, at a hotel in Northern Virginia for 5 days. And it's all cute and everything because you can get a cheaper motel. But I found out when I went there in 2019, yeah, it was $65 for the room, and I could actually walk outside and see the Capitol building. Excuse me, it's $125 for the room. Not too bad. I mean, I'm walking outside and I'm looking at the Capitol building 3 blocks away. You know what the problem was? It was also $85 to park my freaking car in their garage. So it turned into over $200 a night just to stay there for 2 days. So can you
No, that's true.
imagine having to
And
go
if
there?
you try to go cheap, then maybe you're 45 minutes away or an hour and a half away from the venue with traffic, and you don't realize that till you get there, and now either miss half of it or waking up at 4 a.m. and doubling the
Well, you
Uber
got to be,
cost. You say, yeah.
yeah, you got to beat the DC traffic, which I was in 2019. And I was able to beat it because they were having whatever the name of that baseball team is that's in Washington, D.C.
Sports
They,
happen. Always getting in the way of
yeah,
everything.
yeah, it was the World Series parade. And they shut down most of the streets. And I was there as they were shutting them down. So my Uber was able to get to where I could meet up with all the people that you saw in the pictures back in the day. We had that breakfast. So it was like, a lot of Second Amendment advocates all together in one space. And then we were able to walk down to the event, which was like a mile away. And I'm like, that was what DC shut down. DC gets
You know
shut
what
down.
would be cool? Have a get together of people that are still around that were at that event and just chat about that event back in, before we all forget about it.
Yeah, there was some personalities there that might clash now. But
And not everybody,
um,
but the people that are still around. How about that?
yeah, so it was really good. It was awesome putting
All right.
people
Well, I'm going
together.
on to this next one. We
Okay,
were
go
running
ahead,
a
man.
little bit there.
Go ahead, go ahead.
Woods had asked a long time ago now, 2 hours ago. So
Hmm.
if anybody says that this show is a little short episode each week, you're not correct. What's the best CCW cartridge and why is it 357 Magnum? I have to. I carry 357, so I am definitely an advocate. I'm not as scared to be an advocate for revolvers. I don't get paid by anybody who makes magazine-fed devices or platforms for optics. You know, you sell a pistol, optics companies love you because you're making a platform for their optics, and vice versa, and all the other accessories are the same way. So, and most of the people that you listen to are either sucking up to them or dependent on them for something, and I'm not. So I'm not as scared to say I like a revolver. I think a revolver is ideal for ladies. I think it's ideal for first shooters. I think it's ideal for old people. I think it's ideal for anybody that just wants a dependable gun that they can keep close. And there's definitely other use cases for other guns. I mean, you can buy all the other guns you want, but I do believe 357 is another advantage for revolvers. You can put a massive, powerful cartridge that's capable, that's always going to work. Like there's almost nothing that can stop my revolver from doing its job. And it's 357, and I got five of them, and I can reload it fairly quick, or I can carry another gun. But I know that that's old fashioned or dumb or lame. But anyway, so I really, really, really like 357. And then 45
Okay.
ACP is next after that for me, but I'll let Tony give you more his opinion.
So, dang, what is this jerk off's name? Anyway, this is not even a jerk off. He has a YouTube channel. He just posted this 357 Magnum. So last week, damn, HR, dang, I forget his name. He was in the Marine
Sharp
Corps.
Puff and stuff.
Yeah, I know. I went there too. HR puffing stuff in my mind. Last week he did velocities and foot pounds of 9 millimeter fired out of concealed carry guns from like 2 or 3 inch gun all the way up to using 16 inches on the Keltec sub 2000 and the foot pounds and the velocity of it. And then this week he did 357 Magnum going from 2 inch barrels to a 16-inch lever action. Now it's hilarious because a 16-inch 9 millimeter coming out of a 16-inch barrel. And this is not range ammo. This is self-defense ammo. Coming out of a 16-inch barrel, 9 millimeter self-defense ammo hits about as hard as 357 coming out of a 2 or 3 inch barrel. Coming out of a 2 or 3 inch barrel, they used 125 grain 357 Magnum ammo, and I think they used 124s and 9 millimeter. And that 357 ammo hits a little over 400 foot pounds, like 430 foot pounds, out of a 2 inch barrel. And then when you get up to a 6 inch barrel, or like let's say a 686, right? A 686 with a 4 inch barrel, it's hitting I think about 500. Out of a 6 inch barrel, it was at 700 foot pounds. And out of a 16-inch barrel, it was 1100 foot pounds, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, 357 is a very good all around cartridge. And then when you have smaller firearms, yes, it's going to slap like hard in your hand. But I'm looking at something like the new Diamondback SDR self defense revolver with a 3 inch barrel. It has a full J frame grip, and I shot that at SHOT Show, and I hit, and it only had 38 in it at the time, but still, it was soft shooting. It was lightweight. Seems easy to carry. It has that organic curves on it that a revolver does, so it doesn't look as linear, I guess is the word, as maybe a semi-auto does when you're carrying it. But I'm a big dude and I wear big clothes, so you're not gonna know which bulge is me and which bulge is my firearm. So yes, 357 I think is a really, really good cartridge, even in the smaller sizes. Because again, as a armed citizen, more than likely I won't have a long range shootout, and more than likely I won't need a reload because no one sticks around usually. No bad guy usually sticks around once you start shooting at them. And again, there are no shortcuts, but it's really easy to dry fire revolvers. You won't have to rack the slide every time. You don't have a magazine disconnect. You just take the friggin' rounds out of it, make sure the gun is empty, and you shoot at your light bulb to your heart's content and get used to that trigger squeeze. So I like the idea of revolvers and self-defense. And again, you're correct. The sexy guns are the ones that people get excited over. There's not a lot of people that gonna. I mean, you can look at the numbers yourself on your favorite gun tubers, and when they have a revolver on compared to when they have a semi-automatic on, the numbers tell the story. And those guys are going with whatever pulls them in the most money. But I like the
That's a good
idea.
point. You can look at one channel and look at their revolver videos versus their pistol or rifle videos. That'll tell you, because I mean, it is just the nature of it. Same with shotguns. Nobody cares about shotguns. Those videos are going to be the
Nobody
worst.
cares about shotguns. And here's the thing, in my opinion, again, living behind enemy lines and also dealing with people in James Reeves has a good series talking about AR-15s used in self-defense shootings and how the jury reacts to them. And then he just did one on AK-47s too because he's smart. He knows how to get people to watch. But when you use a modern sporting rifle in self-defense, the jury of your peers that are again morons, uh, they see it as evil guns. But if your home defense firearm was a lever action, if your home defense firearm was a revolver, man, or your home defense firearm was a shotgun, the uphill battle that that prosecutor has to try to fight to go against, again, a jury of your peers that their granddad had a shotgun. They see cowboy movies with the lever action, and the good guys have that. You wouldn't be sitting here in 2025 if you were a bad guy or bloodthirsty with a lever action. It's like, yeah, good luck with that, pal. So I think those firearms with, a light, a sling, on the lever action, a light sling on your shotgun, these make effective home defense firearms still today because human beings are built the same way that they were back when those were the main firearms. I don't see a difference, except there's a lot of people teaching classes now that are former military or former freaking cops, and the only things they know how to run are modern sporting rifles, ARs, maybe a AK every now and again, and a freaking Glock. These people have no clue how to run a revolver effectively because that's gone out of style. To find a good revolver class, more than likely you'd have to take it with someone like Clint Smith, old school, someone that used a revolver in his regular job. And when it comes to shotguns, there are very few national level shotgun classes that are being run by people that actually like shotguns.
And Clint quit teaching, so maybe he's got it in his, what's the word,
He has it in his curriculum.
curriculum. But
He has it in his curriculum.
maybe somebody got taught by him, but you're no longer learning it from people who used it as part of
Yeah,
their gig. Yeah. So I
yeah.
just,
I
with
mean,
shits
and
and
truly,
giggles,
yep.
went to Robot here. Have you ever heard of
Oh, what's it?
Perplexity? Oh, sorry, I'm cutting
No,
you off.
what the hell is that?
It's one of the robots out there. It's like
Oh, okay.
ChatGPT. So I just was, as you were chatting, I was just thinking, what would this robot tell me? So I'm asking it, what are the best topics to make YouTube videos about in the firearms community, or for the firearms community, man? Maybe it's a better word. For the firearms community in 2025. And then we'll see what it comes up with. Based on the search results and current trends, in-depth firearms review, especially new models released at SHOT Show 2025, educational content on firearm safety, handling, and training, comparisons and tests of the latest firearms accessories, including optics, triggers, and suppressors. Does this thing listen to me? Coverage of
Yeah.
emerging firearms technology, such as 3D printed suppressors, monolithic barrels, historic firearms, and forgotten guns, which have a dedicated following. Women focused content in the firearms community addressing topics to female shooters, tactical training and self defense scenarios, political commentary, and Second Amendment advocacy is number 8. DIY gunsmithing. Oh, and while adhering to legal guidelines. Interesting, because I was going to say, really? Gunsmithing? You can't do that on YouTube, but then it put that caveat in there. Long range shooting techniques, hunting, budget friendly firearms. So that's just a robot who went out and looked at all the different YouTube videos and used, I think it probably cited a bunch of them down here. Oh no, it's just
I'd
asking me.
laugh. Go ahead. I'd laugh if it cites your own damn show. It's like, was he listening to me? Yeah, kind of, bro. You are a
You might
resource
have.
now.
Because what'll happen is we'll say all this stuff. It doesn't happen immediately, but as we're saying this stuff, it gets transcribed into words, and those are available. And that's what they actually do. The AIs go out. If there's the ones that can look at the internet today, will go out
Hmm.
and just read all these YouTube videos that relate to whatever it thinks. Yeah, and it'll jam them all up in here. Just because it asked the question, or it said it wanted to know, do I want to know how do gun tubers make money on YouTube? Sponsorships and brand deals. Gun tubers collaborate with firearms related companies to showcase product or services. Affiliate marketing. They used personal links in the videos, earning commissions when they make purchases. Crowdfunding, like Patreon and Subscribestar. YouTube AdSense is number 4. So, in other words, YouTube paying us. That used to be number 1, and now it's number
Hmm.
4. Merchandise sales. So, create merchandise and sell that, t shirts and whatnot. Alternative income, rely on money outside of Amazon, or I mean, outside of
Stripping,
YouTube, Amazon.
stripping,
Uh, oh, yeah. What's that
stripping
called?
and
OF?
pawning.
OF.
OF, yes, OF.
Creating digital projects, downloadable content, website monetization. May create their own websites and generate revenue through that. That's interesting. That's number 8. That's a tough one. But
Only guns. Only guns content.
actually, shit, somebody should make that, huh? Because at this
Yeah.
point, you'd be better off doing that. Actually, I mean, this wouldn't be the first time. There's been other attempts at making paywall based gun content, but people weren't going to tolerate it when YouTube was free. Now that YouTube ain't free, like it's free to use, but it's not free for us to post on anymore. Maybe some one of those things would work again. Remember guntube.org and all the other shitty ones?
Hold on.
Guntube.org.
Hey guys, if you want to watch what I was watching, I just saw it right here. HR Funk. That's his name because I just looked at those are the last two videos I actually watched all the way through. HR Funk.
FUNK.
Yep.
Okay.
HR Funk just did it as 125 grain, 357 jacket, hollow point versus barrel length. Does Magnum matter? Is the video. And for the 9 millimeter, it says close to the same thing. 9 millimeter performance versus barrel length. Does your length matter? So if you want to throw it up on screen, at least they can see what it looks like, the thumbnail.
Well, I was going to say, I
Um,
don't know if I'm allowed to. I don't know that guy. Is
oh,
he
okay,
cool?
yeah, don't worry about it.
Is
Oh,
he
I
cool?
don't know if
I'll
he's
put a
cool or
link to
not.
it over here.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah, retired
sometimes
cop.
people will, it'll be a copyright strike if I put it up there.
Okay, yeah, all right, no problem. Um,
But
Retired
there's a
cop,
link to it.
former Marine, Marine MP. So if
Oh,
you
I
know
think I've
anybody,
seen this guy before. I never watched a video, but I've seen
oh
people
yeah,
link to it. He's been
I've
around for a
gone
while.
at him before. I've gone at him before, and he somehow has said, "Look, I've contradicted something he said because I didn't agree with it." And he didn't come back as rude, but he came back. If you're reading something, you can read into it and feel whether it's rude or not. I thought he was a little confrontational, but again, who knows? Who knows? But I don't have to agree with everything you said. Still enjoy your content.
So, what, is he a Marine?
Yeah, he
Corporal?
was. He was a Marine Corps MP.
Oh, and a Marine Corps MP. I can't even
Yeah.
imagine what a Marine Corps MP is like. Holy crap.
Well, I was gonna say mostly douche canoes, but I
I
did
was
have
gonna
one
say,
boy that
like,
was cool.
I don't think that they get a lot of awards for being kind and friendly and shit all the time. Like, you don't probably last long in that job being a real touchy feely type of guy.
Oh, look. Hey, my boy became my boy because I saved his life one day. So outside of that, yeah, he walked around and he looked like the dude that would give you a ticket, regardless. But listen, it's all in who you know and everything in life. And he saved my ass, I saved his. Um, but yeah, he was a cop in the Corps, got out the Corps, became a cop in real life, and he just retired from his department. So take that what you will. But I like his information. He puts it out there, even if I don't agree with him, and I'll speak up about it. And I don't care if you like it or not. I'm watching it. I'm liking the stuff, and I'm telling people about it, even on this show. I think information is important to get out there, and I didn't know how dominant compared to a 9 mil out of a freaking 5-inch barrel. that a 357 out of snubby pretty much is actually whoops its ass. So,
Oh, really?
oh, and
Like
then
you don't need all that barrel, is what you're saying?
for a 9 mil, yeah, you're gonna need all that barrel. But if you have a 357, no, no, you're good.
I
You're
always
good.
kind of figured, and maybe it's just because you shoot enough steel, you can kind of tell like this thing. I don't wouldn't
Hmm.
want to be anywhere near the end of this thing. Like when it hits steel, it hits. And I figured it has to be a combination of how big 357 is because it ain't small. Like there's nothing small about that projectile. It's big, and they can be pretty. You can make some pretty nasty looking, gnarly looking hollow points out of them because there's so much of it.
Yeah.
But it's also a lot of cartridge. So I'm like, there's a
Well,
lot of stuff
you got
going on here, and when it hits steel, it rings.
well, you got 125, right? And this is we're talking self-defense rounds. And 125 is the one. What was the name of the guys back in the day that did they collected the data on lethality on handgun cartridges. It's not Sandow, that's something else. But anyway, those
I
guys
didn't
collected
remember
data, and 357 at the time had like a 98% one-stop shot. 357 launching the 125 grain round. And this is in the 70s, 80s. Those were the numbers that were used by
that. Was
those
that
guys
like
because
shooting a pig or something, or was that like based
no,
on
that
data or
people,
like history? Okay,
yeah, they're actually
crimes and
shooting.
stuff. Okay, yeah, yeah.
Yep. And understand that was 357. I'm not even bringing up other things because, of course, cartridges have changed in the last 30 years, the design of them. But 357 fired in jacketed hollow point like silver tip, which is, FBI load back in the 80s, was dropping dudes at over 95% one shot stops. So when it comes time to using a revolver as a civilian in self defense, one, your target's going to be closer. All right. Two, it's going to be unexpected and you pull it out. And you have plenty of time to practice, especially using 38s, putting rounds on target quickly. And then you can just practice, a couple cylinders with 357 Magnum to get, ready for the recoil that's from those. But if you have a shit ton of dry practice, dry firing, actually put in the work, and then do what I mean, I'm not, I was going to say do what I do. I have fun taking classes, excuse me, not classes, taking competitions, shooting at competitions at the local range. It's fun. It's not like the police shoot I do is 50 rounds. It's 50 rounds of 38 that you can compete using your revolver. It's not a lot. You want to run a second run? All right, it's another 50 rounds. IDPA, just local outlaw matches, not joining something. It's again probably not 100 rounds. So you get to shoot in different scenarios, left hand, right hand, both hand, multiple distances, multiple targets at sometimes. You get to put in that work for not a lot of money, and then you load that same firearm up with 357 Magnum and carry it as your self-defense gun. If things go wrong and you have to pull that gun out, imagine you're going to operate close to the same level you will when you're under the stressor of a buzzer and a bunch of strangers and talking smack to your friends that you made at these events. You're still going to perform really well, probably better than most police officers do. So why not? Again, you get something lightweight. I'm really loving the feel of that self-defense revolver from what did I say? Diamondback. It had a really good trigger, and I am looking forward to hopefully getting one. And I'm not saying this because I'm kissing their butt, but I went around and tried the triggers on Smiths, Colts, Tauruses, and that gun. Those are the only ones, right? Oh yeah, and what's the name of the other company? SAR, SAR, SAR. And that revolver from them had the smoother trigger. The only thing that came close to them was Court. The only thing that came close to them was Court over at the Nighthawk Custom booth. Now we're talking about a freaking $3,000 revolver. So I might. have something else that I'm going to be carrying in the interim. But if I get one of those, I might actually start competing with it, shooting it, get my confidence up. Not only can I shoot it, then I can reload it under, a time stress. And I might carry that. because it's different, it's new, and it's a skill set I want to exercise. But 357 Magnum with the 125 grain bullet has been putting people in, and has been stopping bad guys for a long time. So a lot of this ammo we're using now, think about it. 9 millimeter just became something that people recommend. Before that, I mean, 40 was slaying. 40 was putting people down because we're talking either 165 grain or a 180 grain round doing like 11, 1200 feet per second. It was doing its thing. It was low power 10 mil.
Yeah, it would be neat to see some timelines now that you're saying that. Uh, like a timeline of, I don't know what to call it, like popularity maybe, or like sales, or,
Hmm.
like something. Probably sales would be an indicator of the popularity or whatever. But, a timeline or a graph of what that looks like over time for each caliber, and then put that on top of a timeline of like training events or eras, or just like the things that have happened, developments in the training, and then overlay on that when the states get CCW, because there's really not a lot of point in training if you can't carry, and once
Hmm.
you can carry, there's way more incentive to learn what you're doing, and then it starts to escalate exponentially because you get to some tipping point in it where first there was Cooper, and then there was 45 ACP, I guess, probably, right? I guess that's
What?
what he's training with
No,
1911s, maybe
no.
357s.
Yeah, what? Okay, this is what, because I learned it because rabbit holes on the internet. But it was 38 special. People
That
were
was the
shooting.
drug of choice back then.
That was the drug of choice pretty much until the 90s, bro. Now people would talk a good game. Stuff would be on the cover of magazines. The new 40 Smith and Wesson. Everyone's using this. Your local PD is using this. This is a big deal. And people were still shooting 38s. Yeah, but what about all those 357 ads? Understand, back then, 357 was something that they thought kicked a lot. I mean,
That was big. It was
357,
huge. Yeah.
yeah, 357 Magnum came out in 1935 as registered Magnum from Smith and Wesson, and he went around the world hunting with them. And it's hilarious because he was showing, oh, you can use this for anything. Well, what he ended up doing, in my opinion, is showing people that you can drop a friggin' water buffalo with this thing. What the hell do you need it for? it's like, it's like, huh? My 38 works just as well. And 357 sales were okay, but people were putting 38s in. They buy the gun because they can brag about it, and they have that box that they have their brother-in-law shoot, and he'd look at you like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you shoot that." Meanwhile, you have 38s that you put in it, and that went well into the friggin' 80s, 90s. 44 Magnum came out in 55, but that thing really didn't go anywhere. You had Smith making it, and then I think you had Ruger make one. And then Daddy Harry came out, and all of a sudden, people were buying 44s, but again, they were not shooting them. And you can look at almost any story, and they talk about how, yeah, everybody was buying 357 Magnums, and then you could find them used in the gun store with a box of ammo and like one round missing because they sold everything. So no, 357 Magnums are still effective, and they stayed around longer than you think. They stayed
Well,
around when 9 millimeters were out there in Glocks.
I
People
guess
were
what I'm saying is, though, when you lay down all these timelines to start to see the interrelationships between like when,
classes.
well, yeah, like first you got to have the awareness that you can carry, and then because of places like Vermont and Alaska, and then eventually Florida, kind of break the ice and say, now people are like, well, they can carry, I want to carry. So first you got to have the political side, or the like, the rights removed, like the denial of rights removed, so that you can even do it. Then once you can even do it, you got to get a gun that's worth carrying, because that's why guns looked stupid back in the old days, because nobody carried them. Like they just bought them and took them to the range. They could look like whatever they wanted to look like. That's why getting Rugers looking stupid and all kinds of dumb guns. So once you start putting it on and you're carrying it like a piece of apparel, right, or like a tool that you're carrying every day, then you want it to be smaller. You want it to be more whatever, robust, more resistant to rust. You want it to work all the time. You want it to be lighter weight, right? All these different parameters start to come into play. So then the calibers start to mix up because, like you said, like just because a caliber exists doesn't mean it's ideal for, and maybe it's ideal for like stopping power, whatever you want to call it. Like,
Hmm.
doesn't mean that it's ideal for carrying it. So that's where I'm saying, like, all that mixes up. And when you first start carrying, it's very much like we were talking about with NRA training, like kind of rigid and dumb. And then as there's like more style and finesse and different kind of perspectives put into this to carries training, you get different tastes, right? Appendix training, appendix carry versus purse carry versus
Well,
shoulder carry. Like, talk about, different
one of the
styles of carry.
one of the ways you can check it out is, I mean, of course, we were there, but if you pull up old articles from classes, like, damn, Masada Ayub. Masada Ayub classes were used the revolvers well into the early 2000s. Like you can see in some of the classes, and you can watch the guns change. You can watch them go from revolvers to things like 1911s, uh, to definitely when the military adopted the Beretta 92. You see those in classes because the people that took those classes either brought cop guns, which were revolvers, or and pretty much it was cop guns or military guns. That's what they carried because, like you said, there wasn't a lot of CCW, but these were the people that wanted to learn that craft, and that's what they had. And I think it really went 38, 357, and then it got into the carry. Remember when that crap kicked off? Unless you were in the military, police went with 40 cal. So 40 Smith and Wesson would probably jump right up there. Mid 90s, early 2000 was 40 Smith and Wesson, and then it probably swapped places with 9 millimeter later on, and then
No, I was going to
that's when it
say,
fell off.
because when I started paying attention, it was just when 380 and 32 H&R were fighting
Hmm.
about who's going to be, because at first it was backup guns for cops. And then it was like, well, I can carry. What am I going to carry? A full size cop gun or the backup gun for cops? Or a detective gun? And of course, you're not going to think about a revolver. Pfft, of course not. Actually, I shouldn't say that because people were still buying revolvers because that's why they
Yep.
wanted the H&R. So then they were like, well, if I'm gonna, I guess that's what it was, do I want a backup gun or do I want a detective gun? Because that's all there
Yep.
was. There was no carry guns yet. So you're like,
Not
well, I don't
really.
want a 380. So I'm going to get a revolver. Ooh, all the revolvers are 5 shot. Everybody tells me I need as much ammo as possible. So how can I get 6 shot, or how can I get 6 shots in a J frame? Oh, 32 H&R. And then 380 was like, you ain't going to take our backup gun or our pocket gun
Hmm.
slot. We're going to make all these 380s. And
Hilarious.
that's when that was, I think, one of the funnest times because then you get the tiniest of tiny little semi autos. But
What was the name of that gun? What was the name
which
of the
one?
one? Uh, it was a
Semi auto?
semi-automatic. Semi-automatic. It wasn't a 380. It was a
There
30
were
C
there
C
were
camp.
things,
The
sea
C
camp,
camp.
and what was the other one? There was another really expensive one, and they always existed, but they were out of
Hmm.
everybody's price range because they were like a thousand
Yep.
bucks or something crazy, right?
But
And
remember, that was the dream gun. C camp and the PPK.
no,
That
there
that
was
was the
another
one
one.
they
It wasn't a Bauer. There was maybe
what?
somebody making no, it was just like the sea camp. I can't think of it. Somebody else will know what I'm talking about. But there was another really expensive little pocket one. I don't think I'm
Okay.
crazy. But then anyway, there was the Keltec came along with the three P3AT. I really like that gun.
P3TAT. Yep.
And if you say it really fast, it's P380, but it's
Yep.
P3AT. And and then a whole bunch of other guns came around, and then they went, no, we can figure out how to do the 9 millimeter. That's when 9 millimeter was like, step aside, metric is taken over, and everybody jumped to 9 millimeter, and it never came back. That's when 45 ACP died, and that's when 40 just leapt off a cliff. It didn't have any hopes of living. All the gaps
Well,
and the SIGs and everything else just Harry carried. The 9 millimeter just slaughtered and took over and dominated ruthlessly, tyrannically.
well, I look at 40 and I go, well, 40 never stopped doing what 40 did. It was everybody left 40 because it was harder. Oh, it's more recoil. Yeah. And that's also shows me that 45 was never really a thing. It wasn't, unless you were one of those Jeff Cooper people or gun sight people. They were the only ones using 45s. For real, for real. That was it.
Oh no, yeah, the only people, well, like cops, off-duty cops, maybe.
SWAT cops. SWAT cops use 45 a lot. But as a, in the magazines and stuff, guys, look, 45. Meanwhile, you show the class and it was retired cop, retired SWAT cop, because they knew. Or, military guys who were on some kind of team in the military, because that's what they ran too. And it's hilarious when you listen to people as you get older. As you get older and you've been there and done that with some stuff, but then you're talking to people who've only got a Wikipedia entry as their expertise. And they go, yes, the military got rid of the 1911 and 1983. I'm like, no, no, they didn't. Well, only specialty units had it. No, that's wrong again. It's like, you could have gotten issued the 1911 up until the 90s. I know. I synced it because I was there. I actually trained on the 1911 in boot camp. But yeah, that was a lot of people, usually with somebody like me that had time in the military, or they were a SWAT cop that ran these things. And they were running things like Kimbers back in the day. And that's when Kimber took off. And I know it's like, what do you call it? Fashionable to crap on Kimber because they earned it. Let's not think they didn't earn being crapped on when they started taking shortcuts. But they, oh, and that was one of Woods' question. What company has better QC now? I think Kimber might be one of those companies now that are trying to fight their way back from their own bad press that they earned. And Taurus is another one that might be working on their way coming back from their own bad press that they earned because of their lack of QC. Because I know it used to be a thing of pride for Taurus that if you send a gun in to be repaired, it would take 6 to 8 months to come back from Brazil. But now they're doing their repair work in the States and Florida. So to answer that question that I don't think you ever put up on screen, uh, those two.
It's up there now. It's up there now. I've had that
Okay.
one up for a little bit. But yeah, that
Oh,
one
yes,
was
sir.
from, again, 2 hours ago or whatever. It was definitely one of the first questions asked. So thanks for asking the questions. That's kind of what we're here for. And we end up ranting a little bit, but people haven't
Shut us off
complained
yet.
too
So,
much. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, so
So I would say for me, I don't know. Um, is Diamondback the one you're talking about, the one in Florida?
Diamondback is in Florida, yes.
Okay.
I was actually
Um,
hanging out with them last weekend, too.
I don't know. High Point. I don't know that they changed anything or that people just quit giving them shit. Like, I think that I'd like to think that once people figure out that all guns are on our side, that quit making fun of guns. Like, I can't think of any companies out there that are trying to rip us off with garbage guns.
Well, with High Point, it was this. You listen to a bunch of instructors in the day that always wanted to be tactical and understand they got to sell tickets, too. And they got to fill classes, too. And walking around saying 170 or $125 gun may be good enough for you if you're only going to shoot, you know, a little a year or going to keep it in your tackle box. Well, they're not going to say that because they want cool guns in their class. And High Point also has an issue with their magazines that you have to tweak the mag lift. And some people didn't know that. Well, word got around in forums and things like that because that's where I learned to tweak the mag lifts on my High Point 40, and it became more dependable. And then you got people doing real reviews instead of just using High Points as clickbait to go, "Ooh, these suck." I put over 3,000 rounds through mine, and I can give you the good, the bad, and the ugly about it. And I think that just started happening more and more. And I don't. I talked to the guys at High Point. We had this conversation. Actually, my first conversation with Charlie Brown was about how High Point magazines suck. I didn't know I was talking to the president of freaking High Point, but it wouldn't have changed anything I said. I might have been more respectful, but it didn't change anything I said. And it's just what it is. It's not exceptional. It's not as good as a Glock, but for what it is good. And if you want something better, well, other guns have come into that price range now. Right now, to get one of the new high points, new designed high points, It's about 170 to $200. Well, for $225, you can get a Glock clone. What would my thing be? If you can save up $225, you get a better gun. You get a lighter gun, you get a more ergonomic gun, and you get something that shares Gen 3 Glock parts that are ubiquitous. If not, spend 170 to $200 and get your high point, and you'll have a heavy gun that'll work, that'll use plus P, that doesn't have a slide release, that's heavy, and that you'll have to get a holster made for it probably. Oh, and actually, no, you can buy holsters. Galco has holsters. So there are holsters out there. Phobos has holsters. Galco has holsters for High Point. So you do your thing. Has High Point gotten better or worse? I just think people are giving it more of a fair shake than they gave it before. It never stopped being what it is.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. I think what I was saying is, I would like to think that the gun industry or the gun community, whatever you call people that own guns, are
Hmm.
that they're getting to be more aware of what to expect out of a gun. So if you go to like Harbor Freight, I think everywhere has a Harbor Freight, and you go to buy
Hmm.
a drill press from Harbor Freight, you might get a really, really, really good one, but it's going to be kind of big, like maybe extra metal or whatever because of the crude way they made it or something. Although that's less and less, I guess, now that shipping is more of a deal. But back in the day, you might get something that it worked by brute force. Like it wasn't necessarily the best designed vice or patrol press or thing, but it was overbuilt, so it was going to work. But every once in a while, it would be a clunk. And I would say my success rate is probably in the positive. Like more of the stuff I got was good,
Hmm.
and every once in a while, you get a lemon. But with guns or whatever, or but anyway, even with the best Harbor Freight tool, it's something that if I was taking it to a job site, like if I was going to be working with concrete or it had the risk of getting tar all over it or something, I'm like, you know what, this ain't the best drill, but since I'm going to get tar all over it and it might not last but 3 jobs, like I'm going to use the Harbor Freight one for $25 instead of my really good one that's cost me, $200 or something. So it definitely had its place. And like you're saying, in a toolbox, or like, we have the shed or we have the
Hmm.
cabin maybe, and this is in the time before you could carry a gun around. Like we might as well
Hmm.
leave a gun at the cabin, and we only have the 2 guns, so it's either take our gun with us, which we might get in trouble for. I mean, it's maybe unnecessary. There's a grandpa's gun or whatever. Maybe we want to leave it at the house with the daughter or whatever. So let's just get another gun at the cabin. And what do we need a gun at the cabin? Like it's going to be plinking or maybe shooting a coyote or something. I
Yep.
don't condone that, but I know that's what people do. And then, um, yeah, like you're going to buy more of a fire extinguisher, like the Harbor Freight version, and so those are allowed to exist for like the extra things. But then other people are allowed to go, I don't know if I want a gun or not yet, so I'm going to buy $100 gun and see if I like guns. And I can't tell you how many people I know that bought $100 gun, which is a Jennings or something similar,
I've had the
um,
same thing.
and right? And then they're like, yeah, guns are all right. And they kept it, or maybe got rid of it, or like traded it to somebody for like a wrench or something, or like, oh, can you fix my kitchen? Yeah, I'm going to give you this gun and $100. Got rid of it that way.
When
Or
they
they're like, oh yeah, this gun is okay, but I went to the range and I rented a Smith and Wesson, and this gun isn't as good
Uh-huh.
as a Smith and Wesson. I'm going to get another gun, and now they got a collection started or whatever.
So, and it's funny because it's interesting. I like saying it's funny and as a crutch. It's interesting because as someone who's trained people and you see different types of people, I'm not just training 20 somethings that wish they were in the military. I'm training grown ass men and women and others that go, wait a minute, you're telling me I can buy a $125 pistol because I'm only getting a gun because of the chance of something happening. And more than likely, I'll live my entire life without anything happening. So why would I drop $500 on it when I can drop $175 on it? And I can either try to argue with them over quality and say some stupid crap like, how much is your life worth? Which I think is a stupid ass argument. Um, or I can go ahead and buy it. I know the high point of work. But the minute you go to a range and start shooting with your friends and shooting some other modern firearms with a higher price point, you're going to see that difference. Now, nothing wrong with a high point, but If you got a choice between a high point and a modern firearm that's adopted by militaries and law enforcement, you're going to see the difference in them. And you might not own a high point anymore, or you'll own that, but you'll own something else too. And the high point becomes a brother-in-law gun. Oh, and by brother-in-law gun, I mean, you got that brother-in-law that calls you a gun nut until something goes sideways, and then he's calling you, "Hey, could I borrow a gun?" Yeah, here's this nice high point. Becomes a brother-in-law gun. Also, what your first AR becomes. That AR you bought because it was on sale, or you didn't know what you were buying, and now you have a different one. Yeah, well, your brother-in-law just became part of the carry handle gang. There you go, buddy. That's how I look at things like that. You can't convince some people that they should spend more money. And I think high point is as low as you should go financially, because you can pick up a used high point for like $100. And if there's something wrong with it, it has a lifetime warranty on the gun, not your ownership, on the gun. So the minute you purchase that high point, you have a warranty that lasts the life of the firearm. That's why I won't poo-poo them.
I guess to finish my answer, because we've gone on a couple of tangents, I guess, but since we're here to answer the questions, just to finish out my thought or whatever,
Yes, sir.
I would think that pretty much all of them that were questionable or low end either went away because their competition didn't stay there, or they got better just because they were in some kind of trajectory towards being a better company, and everybody starts somewhere. So I don't, and especially when you're talking recently, machining gets cheaper. People that know how to machine, there's 3D printing to do whatever that's called, prototyping, that kind of thing. Like all of that
Hmm.
stuff, and things have been, it's just more collaboration and more opportunities and stuff, I would say, just from my experience in in the industry, I guess. So, and there's no tolerance either, right? Like you really couldn't make I'm trying to think of like a gun that was like, back in the days of Saturday Night Specials, people don't have too many of those. But and then
I'll tell you.
before that, there was a thing called the Suicide Special, and that was another thing that was used against gun owners, and those were kind of like I think they would call them like a tourist gun. Like if you went to Spain and you back in the day and you were buying stuff at a tourist store or whatever you call it. Yeah, I guess
Hmm.
it's tour. Okay, is it a tourist? What do you call that when you souvenir store? When you go to like a
Yeah.
souvenir store, you'd get this like what am I trying to say?
Mm.
Like a pirate derringer, right? And
Yeah.
you'd bring it home, and some dumbass would load it up and shoot it and blow their hand off or something, and they call them suicide specials. Blamed gun owners for them, and it's like starter guns that were used incorrectly
Yep.
and novelty guns that were used incorrectly, and it's like like you want to call that a gun, all right. There were definitely bad guns, though. I don't want to make it sound like all guns were good. Like there were
Mm-mm.
definitely cheap guns for whatever reasons back in the old days, but that's the same as there was like bad bicycles and other shit. Like back in the days before lawsuits and before there was like some kind of responsibility in making products. There was a lot of kanky crap, and guns have been around through that time. So there was definitely bad guns. But today, I don't think that shit would be tolerated, nor would you be able to do it because you get sued. So the gun has to be at some quality level. And like I say, the ones that aren't, I can't think of any that aren't, but they would be gone. Like they wouldn't exist
I'll go
anymore.
ahead and tell you something that sucked back in the
Okay.
day. Colt 2000, or American Eagle, or whatever you call that. The Colt American 2000 or
We were
some
talking
shit.
like a model, though, not like a company that came in.
I'm talking a model, but see, the thing that happened with Colt is they went on strikes, and all of a sudden, all of their stuff had QC issues. Colt was definitely one of the ones that had a lot of QC issues because they went through strikes back in the 70s, and they were doing crap like putting out pythons that didn't have freaking rifling in them. I mean, I remember reading that specifically, and just unfinished products. It was like really crappy for a minute, and they had to get their stuff back together. And truthfully, when they finally got their stuff back together, they stopped innovating. And you can see that with Colt now. Look at any AR they make. I mean, they got to the point they were just having their ARs made by a third party in Texas. And I'm sorry, but the Colt 1911 is really nothing to write home about at this point because there's other manufacturers that do it better for the same price. Hell, their competition that does it better for the same price bought them. Dan Wessons from CZ. I was looking at that because they were in the same booth at SHOT and at Great American Outdoor Show, and it was hilarious to watch it, especially at the Great American Outdoor Show. You figured out why Colt was still in business because people still believe in the dancing pony logo. And I actually took a photo and some video of it because I thought it was interesting that you would have the Colt side of the booth. They had their revolvers and their semi-automatic, which was the 1911, on one side of the booth, and it was packed like 4 or 5 deep. And then you go over to CZ, and CZ had a person in front of every firearm. Like, their little table was surrounded, but it was only one person deep. And they were just switching places, checking out CZs, and those with L's in the know. And then when you looked at the Dan Wesson table, you had one dude just walking up and down the aisle of Dan Wesson, just checking them all out alone. And all of this was in like one area. Like they could all see each other, and no one was going over to the Dan Wesson because they didn't know what it was. But the Dan Wesson, in my opinion, makes a better revolver. I mean, not revolver, better 1911 than Colt does.
I'm probably missing stuff, but we should probably wrap it up at some point. I think
Yep.
we're about to hit the 3 hour mark.
We got to bounce. We got stuff to
Um,
do.
let's see. I don't. If I'm probably missing a couple from the John guy because I'm not sure if those are questions so much. I thought there was stuff we might be able to chat about, but a lot of legal statements, I guess you could say. Like we the
Mhm.
people should be able to travel in our vehicles all armed from point A to B without a government permission. So it's not really a question, but since we're not really, we just don't have tons of time, we'll just pass on a couple of those kind of questions or whatever
Mhm.
things that I'd starred. Do you see them when I star them, like in the comments?
I saw you
Um,
highlighting some of them. Yeah.
Mike White was saying earlier, again an hour ago, that he heard that the USAID was a big $1 million donor to anti-2A groups. That would piss me
Yep.
off if it was true. I haven't heard that myself, but that would piss me off if that was the case. It would make sense because I think Bloomberg is doing this all to make money. I think he just thinks this is a titty he can twist without any consequence, and he was doing it for a while for free, and then he figured out with the bullshit Safer Communities Republican backed gun control that happened a couple years
Mhm.
back, he got paid back for all the bullshit that he had invested in.
Mhm.
So he created a bunch of strife and bullshit and made tons of political profit off of it. His name is well known. Lots of people love him because they suckle off of him, and they're jumping
Mhm.
around trying to get his attention to get his money from him. And then he created enough political pressure to create this stupid gun control bullshit that set aside $40 trillion over the next 10 years or something, or was it 4 years? No, I think it was 10 years to set
Mhm.
aside just shit tons of money that the states have to fight for. They have to jump around and fight to get the money. And the way they fight for it is by making red flag laws. And
Mhm.
when they win, the ones that do win get a rainfall of money for making those bad red flag laws, which might be what Massachusetts is doing. Is that what Toby was
Yep.
talking about today? And then what happens is that triggers this rainfall of money from the feds, and that money is going to go to where? The states. And where are they going to spend it to try to get more next year? And who's that going to be spent with? The Bloomberg gun control groups. So isn't that convenient that $40 trillion or whatever, the unprecedented amount of money that's going to be trickled down is going to only go, no matter who wins, it goes to one of Bloomberg's groups. It's just, is it going to be the group in this state or that state? They have to fight with each other to win, but it's bullshit. And he'll be able to then spin it to like, we need your funding to help us. We got to beat. Connecticut isn't anti-gun enough. Like, we got to be more anti-gun. We got to use your money to do it. So he's going to get people to spend their money to compete with who's going to which one of his wallets is going to get fuller from it. I might be wrong on that, but that's the way I see that happening, or that the way that went down.
Something that annoys me is the fact that people call people names that they don't like and don't agree with. And I'm tired of hearing about how stupid billionaires are. They're not stupid, bro. So,
There's a lot of lucky ones, right? Like a lot of like, oh dang, he's
yeah,
such an asshole that he got $1 billion for being such an asshole, or like
yeah,
that guy was such like a jerk that they gave him $1 billion for it.
a
I don't think
billion
so.
dollars. Now, you might luck into being a millionaire by winning the lottery. You may luck into that. You may luck in them again becoming a millionaire in sports or some other like pursuit that takes a skill that you had. But as a business, regardless of what you are, you're not going to luck into being a billionaire because to be a billionaire means you at least have a minimum of $1,000,000,000. That makes you a billionaire. And outside of being born into it, nobody lucks into that. So they are not stupid. So if
And you'd
Bloomberg
have
is
to
doing
be born
anti-gun,
into a $1 billion family and then be the only heir, right? Because if you're
yeah,
born into a $1 billion family, you got a couple of brothers and sisters, you're no longer a billionaire anymore. You're a millionaire.
yeah. And you have to be able to have all those bad decisions and you still be a billionaire when it's all said and done. So that takes more than $1 billion because trust me, you give me $100, I'm no longer going to be 100 heir at the end of the day. So yeah, the billionaires aren't dumb, and if they're doing something for free, they're getting something out of it. Oh, you're saying something political. No, I'm just saying something common sense. These people usually don't give their services and intelligence away for free without getting something for it. If it's something that benefits you, cool. Because I know people are going to go to Doge, and I'm not talking about Doge. I'm talking about Bloomberg and his anti-gun stuff.
Yeah, we're talking about one dude who doesn't
Yeah,
pour all of his money away. He pours some of his money into one thing, and that one thing is now paying him back. So that isn't like, oh, I'm also altruistic and I care about so many things. He's like cared about a couple of things and then held back on all those others, poured his money into this. I mean, I might be wrong. He might, I'm not a study of him, but from what I have seen, that's pretty much what he did is what he did, the drinks, like you can't have sugar
there
sodas or
you
whatever
go.
in New York.
I was going to bring that up. Yep.
He
He
stopped on
would have a
that
large.
because where's he going to get a fight? Like nobody cares. Like, oh, like big
He
whoop.
didn't
So we
stop.
went somewhere else and bought 2 liter bottles somewhere else or whatever. Like it wasn't a thing. But with guns, he gets a lot of
Uh-huh.
resistance. So he's like, okay, bingo.
You can play that
Yeah.
because he didn't stop with that. He won with the soda thing, and it
Oh,
went away because yeah, he won with that. Oh, that became law in New York. Piece of shit. And for me, that's the most telling because understand, I'm not dealing with a room full of you guys that are here. I'm dealing with people that thought what Bloomberg did was good and think Bloomberg's a good guy because he's trying to keep us all safe. And then when I bring up the soda thing, I'm like, dude, he took your ability to pick up a large soda away because he just thought it was wrong. I was like, the guy is not about freedom, and he's taking your firearms away because he thinks that's
well,
wrong. I mean, he
not only did he just think a soda was wrong, he didn't think that people in New York had the ability to control themselves around soda. And they had to be governed by the state on how much soda they could be rationed due to their inability to control themselves.
and he also changed the law so he could run for a third term. And then
How do
after he got the third term, he turned the law back. I'm like, understand this dude was a control freak, and people forget it. They forget it.
He made it so where he could run for third term, but then made it back so nobody else could run for the third term.
Yep, yep.
Nice.
The dude
I
is
remember
made out of
Clint sitting
audacity.
down one time. I don't remember him running for Bloomberg. That's weird. So Clint is super anti-gun, I guess.
Who's that?
Oh, sorry. Woods' last comment here says, "Never forget that Bloomberg ran for president and Clint Eastwood
Hmm.
campaigned for him." I
Oh,
forgot
really?
about it. I mean, I kind of remember that when he ran for president, kind of, but he must have been in a pretty big pack because I don't remember him being too much of a threat. But I remember us
People,
chatting about it, but I
oh,
don't remember.
dude, he's the only one Kamala can make fun of. He was in and out faster than she was. Because remember, Bloomberg ran as a Republican, bro.
Oh, it was that
Bloomberg,
recently? It was when she
Bloomberg
was
was a Republican.
running. Okay.
Hmm.
Or wait, she ran when Biden was running, so that would have been
Yep,
16.
2016.
Okay.
2016, from April to December. That's how long her campaign lasted. It didn't last long enough for her to become a black woman. She wasn't black then. Not one
There's
article
been a
said she was
couple of
black.
like interview things that came out where did you see the one? I've only seen the stuff on X, so it's not like I search this shit out. It just comes across my shit on X. But it was interview with some TV show and she's sitting with somebody and when they do these they have like the different cameras rolling. And this is the camera that wasn't live or nothing, of course. So this was him asking her a question or whatever, and then she's just sitting there going like, like thinking about it or whatever, and just kind of saying and
Hmm.
for a while before she comes up with whatever the answer was. And then I think the idea was they were showing like the edited TV show version was her just like boom right to the answer, and maybe they chopped it up so that the answer was a little bit more concise or something. But I'm like, what the fuck? What, every TV show in the world better be doing that. I don't want to see every dumbass politician going, because every one of them's doing that, right? Like, I don't need somebody who's like, anyway, I just thought that was an interesting thing that we're going
Because
to see a lot of behind the scenes things about how dumbass she was. And I'm not saying
what
she's smart or nothing. I'm just saying, like,
I, I
they're just
I
do
agree.
everything they
I
can to
agree
show
with you.
how dumb she was.
I agree with you. But the annoying thing is when I have to hear how smart she is because you watch something edited, and it's just annoying. It's like, but every one of us that create content, well, except me because I'm one take Tony for the most part. Um, most of us edit out uhs and pauses and uncomfortable pauses because it just takes up time and it's kind of
Yeah, it's just a
frustrating
waste of
sometimes.
time. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
So, I mean, like, I'd expect them to do that kind of, like, I don't want to see all that crap.
yeah. But then
But
you
at the
have
same time,
somebody
we're going
like
to see
Trump.
it now.
Oh, you're gonna definitely see it now. Because truthfully, she was not a good candidate. She proved that when she ran on her own. And I guess they figured they could, prop Biden up for 4 years. They could prop her up for 4 years. But the American people didn't buy into it. They didn't like her. She was almost as unlikable
Is what?
as Hillary.
Oh shit! I was gonna say, yeah, they probably just gambled. I was gonna say trying to figure
Hmm.
out bargain and gambled, but they probably just gambled on, or they must have gambled on or bargained on Trump being hated more than he was. Trump
Yeah,
not alienating more people or whatever you'd say that.
they thought
Anyway,
Orange
that's
Man
getting
bad.
into that's
Yeah, let's
long
get out of there.
gone.
Let's get
And
out of there.
then let's see. I don't think there was anything else that I was losing, except for maybe that Brooke has her show coming up here in a bit. I think I closed that window trying to figure out something before. Is that it? No. So her show starts, I think, 7 o'clock my time, so in about 3 hours. And she calls it mental health. Crap, what does she call it? She called it, I think, Mental Health Awareness Saturday or something. Now she had to change the name because of YouTube isn't capable of understanding that you can have a conversation about the topic like suicide prevention and it not be detrimental to YouTube somehow. So, but I appreciate Brooke's effort every week to put time into that. If we would have had more time this week, I was kind of thinking if we didn't have any questions come in. So, first, I'll take a pause and say thanks to everybody for bringing in questions this week. It's always better when we can interact live. But if we didn't have that opportunity this week, I was thinking I could just scroll back through my Instagram because as I was sending you the link and stuff earlier, I was scrolling my Instagram and I'm like, oh crap, this kind of is a show. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I think that started me off on thinking about my some of the post or whatever, but I can't remember specifically which post now. Anyway, getting into the 3 hour mark of the show, you said you've got all, but did you say you got the fifth schedule, or you still got one? You said you still got one schedule
Hmm.
you're still working out for this year.
Yeah, that's the only one. So I have my dates up. The 27th, February 27th is actually on the calendar. You want to check out our diversity shoots, please go to diversityshoot.com and just follow the link to Eventbrite. Or you can follow me on Eventbrite, Tony Simon, and it'll pull up all of my events. So anytime I host an event, I'll send you an email. And I started writing my own emails now. Hopefully, it gets past a lot of spam filters because it's not going to be generated by the computer. And I'm sending it out to let people know. So we halfway sold out to the diversity shoot on a February 22nd at We Shoot in Lakewood. And what I'm going to do is just put up the next two events and the next two events. There are always going to be two events available. I just have to create the very next event that I can sell tickets to and put it out there. So I look forward to seeing you. If you want to support the work we do, you can go to my Patreon, which DJ put in there already. Go to our Patreon and donate monthly. Really appreciate that. That money helps out a lot and eases the pressure on us. You can also donate using our PayPal, and that helps out a lot. So please follow us on diversityshoot.com. Excuse me, not diversityshoot.com. Simon Says Train on Instagram. Simon Says Train on Facebook. The second is for everyone on Facebook. And second for everyone, the numbers, using the numbers on X. My X following is pretty decent size, for a guy that just talks about Second Amendment stuff and posts pictures and videos from Diversity Shoot. So we're over 7,000 followers now, and I really appreciate all of you.
Woods is saying next week use the the legalization of weed as a model for 2A example of moving the Overton window. I've thought about that, or I've chatted about that before in the past. I think that's a very interesting parallel. Is that the right word? Comparison or whatever. So yeah, we could. I don't know if I'm going to remember that, but we could try to remember that for next week. We'll actually open up the spreadsheet next week as well. So thanks again, Tony, for spending 3 hours with us again this week. For everybody that's
Yep.
listening, this is the podcast or the shorts. I've been chopping this up into shorts and experimenting with that. We're getting a lot of new, I guess, subscribers, whatever you call them, viewers from that. And so welcome to everybody. If you've got questions, Ask Gun Questions is the name of the show because we have that website, askgunquestions.com. We're not harvesting emails or anything. You just ask a question over there. We eventually get to it on the show live. And then join us on Saturdays and be part of the conversation. Our goal is just to be old guys who've been around guns for a while, chatting with people from all around and trying to, we're just not selling you nothing, right? We're just here to chat about guns. So
Trying to make
thanks again.
friends.
And I got to figure out my buttons here. The better thing to do would be say stuff as I'm clicking the buttons, but I don't have all my stuff, or do I?
Yeah, saying I got to click the buttons as you're clicking the buttons is not very.
It's not very pressure. So I'm just going to use the same stuff we started with on the way out. So I'll eventually get my buttons right here.
It's 11:59 at Radio Free America, and this is Uncle Sam with music and the truth until dawn. Right now, I got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the walls. The chair is against the walls. John has a long mustache. John has a long mustache. It's 12 o'clock, Americans, another day closer to victory. And for all of you out there on or behind the lines, this is your song.
Oh crap! Now I gotta hit the button.